Where's the guys? No, they keep the defense of that and actually.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah, the older ones really don't rely on homework. So that's not been minutes.
How would you say it?
So that's. Some very.
The place that I found
How
out.
about you? When I'm over here? What are your problems?
I don't like it when it's not on the bird, you know.
Here, right? So we're out of room around the table.
When, you know, McDonald's, go to meetings and stuff. I mean, they also-
This.
That's the only thing that you pretty much.
I'm sorry. And I bring my.
That's so fun.
Oh, yeah. Haven't seen it in a little while.
Hey, Greg.
I read it at some point, but I don't remember.
Make sure they present.
Carl.
All right.
Do you listen? But I can't.
So did you get a location now that the table is full up?
They can all reserve the right to kick me off the table. Other than that, they can sit for the whole.
Okay. All right, folks. So folks, hello. So good evening and happy Tuesday. So this hearing is called to order on Tuesday, June 11th at Brooklyn Community Board 14 District Office at 810 East 16th Street at 6:31 PM. The people in the back, can you hear me?
Not really.
Okay. Can you hear me? Excellent. Okay, great. So the purpose of this hearing is to invite public comment on a proposed zoning text amendment referred to as the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity. On April 29th, 2024, the Department of City Planning began the formal public review process by referring out the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity citywide zoning text amendment, ULURP number N24029 OZRY and CEQR 24 DCP 033Y.
Now everybody say that backward.
It's just the nickname of your favorite transporter. So the application for the zoning text amendment is subject to community board review, and comments and recommendations on this application are due by July 8th, 2024. CB14 has held 2 public housing and land use committee meetings with DCP March 31st and May 8th for preliminary and community district 14 focused previews. Representing the Department of City Planning tonight for this hearing, we have Hanif Yazdi and Jordan Frad. So thank you very much for coming. So they are here to listen and to answer questions that might arise. We will start with public testimony, and then consider items in the proposal roughly in the order in which they would have impact in Community District 14. For public testimony, we will begin with pre-registered members of the public and then members of the public who have signed up tonight. If anyone wishes to testify and has not signed up yet, please fill out a card with Sarah in the back. Sarah is waving her hand. Please note that for this public meeting, testimony from residents of Community District 14 or about potential impacts to Community District 14 will be prioritized over other testimony. Speakers have a 2-minute maximum and may not yield their time to another speaker. Furthermore, members of the public may not speak twice, and we respectfully ask that there be only one representative per group. So if you are here from a neighborhood association, speakers who represent different blocks can speak separately, but we respectfully ask that no more than 3 blocks be represented. And we ask that you minimize any repeat testimony. It's not that we don't love you and we don't want to hear what you have to say, but there's a lot to be said. And so that's why we're doing this. So members of the board will not be called upon a second time unless all others present and wishing to speak have had the opportunity to do so. Once members of the board have spoken, we will assess on whether there is a consensus on a recommendation to the full board, which would then be ratified at the full board meeting on Monday, June 17th. Lastly, the chairperson reserves the right to moderate the discussion as needed in order to balance the needs of gathering as many viewpoints as possible with keeping the conversation moving. So if I politely ask you, is there anything new to add? I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just trying to keep in mind the balance of hearing as many different viewpoints as possible while also keeping the conversation going. So with that being said, we will begin the public testimony. So first up, we have Joe Enright. Joe, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Where's the camera?
They're all over.
All right, so Joe, let me know when you're ready and I'll start the time.
Okay, I'm ready. Thank you. I'm Joe Enright. I'm from West Midwood, Argyle Road, which is not an historic neighborhood.
There isn't a microphone. I'm sorry. You just have to.
All right, that's, I want you to stop the time.
For 18 seconds.
All
Let
right.
me know when you're ready.
So I'm one of the 10 neighborhoods that comprise Victorian Flatbush, right? All developed in the first 10 years of the 20th century. There's a lot of historic neighborhoods here. I'm not one of them, although we're a perfect mirror image of Midwood Park and Miss Terrace. In 2015, I asked a land use attorney who's working for the city, still working, so the name shall be anonymous. I said, you know, should we be worried about not being landmarked? And he said, no, of course not. There's a 2009 zoning amendment that was passed by city council affecting Flatbush. You're safe. All the development's going to occur on commercial strips, not on residential lots. Well, I don't know whether to laugh or cry because then I woke up and read the city of yes proposals, which let me make sure I get this right. They want to create more housing close to the subway. To justify it, city planning conducted only an armchair analysis of the impact that 1,300-page zoning text amendment will have on our cities. They argue in their draft environmental impact statement, there's no way they can measure all the impacts on all the communities, so they measured none. Well, here's a specific adverse impact that I'll tell them about. Our Glenwood Road has a mall, and it's the major gathering place in West Midland.
30 seconds.
Food pantries, Halloween parades, and such not. A church and 31 historic houses stand along there. And 21 of them will be targets under the city of yes rules to be replaced by 3 to 5 story walk-up condos or apartments, none of them affordable. I'll end with this, I'll skip over some paragraphs. Borough President Minoso told Crane Journal last week, he's not satisfied with 3 to 5 story apartment buildings here. He wants them to be 8 stories high. So I ask you all, should we believe that the 2024 City of Yes rezoning will protect us from eight-story apartment buildings? After the 2009 Flatbush rezoning will be obliterated by City of Yes? I think anybody who believes that is very naive.
Thank you very much for your time.
I ask you to vote no, not yes with conditions, just no for all the low-density proposals. Town center, we have no problem with town center because 2009 zoning really emphasized that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henry. So next up, we have Paul, do I pronounce your last name Bosch?
It's both.
Bosch? Let me know when you're ready.
My name is Paul Foch, and I'm here to speak in support of the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity Zoning Text Amendment. Am I speaking loud enough?
You're fine. Keep-
I've lived in the same studio apartment in Flatbush for 14 years, and I probably would not be able to live here if I tried moving here today. There is a housing affordability crisis in New York City, and the reforms proposed by City of Yes are vital to help alleviate it. For example, current parking mandates prevent the construction of many affordable housing projects because of the burdensome additional construction costs of off-street parking. These mandates also raise the cost of market rate housing, thus increasing the rent burden for all New Yorkers moving into a new building. The vast majority of low-income New Yorkers do not own a car. So if we are concerned about creating housing for this rent burden group, eliminating the parking mandate is vital. Connected to the end of parking mandates is the promotion of transit-oriented development in locations which do have access to transit. Apartment buildings allow residents to live without a car. Shockingly, in some areas near public transit, the construction of new apartment buildings is prohibited.
30 seconds.
City of Yes would allow construction of modest-sized apartment buildings in areas within 1.5 miles of public transit. Again, this would ease the overall housing burden in the city, and it would get more people out of their cars. Fewer cars make the streets safer, the air cleaner, and reduce global warming.
10 seconds.
Another crucial City of Yes reform is re-legalize share and small and shared housing. The banning of housing with shared facilities. Okay, that's done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Foch.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up, we have Preston Johnson. Let me know when you're ready.
Hello, I've lived in CB14 for 17 years, and I'm here to speak in favor of housing affordability. This has been the biggest problem in the city for decades, and I'm happy to finally see a response to this crisis. I have a teenager who loves New York, but I don't know how her generation will be able to afford to live here if we don't expand the housing supply to increase affordability. For these reasons, I support eliminating parking minimums. Early in my career, I practiced architecture and was responsible for looking at specific lots in Brooklyn to determine how many units of affordable housing could be built under the existing zoning codes. Time after time, parking requirements made housing construction unaffordable. We had to design fewer apartments, and the rent would need to be higher to make the construction financing work. No one who drives a car enjoys looking for parking, but adding more parking to the neighborhood means adding more traffic to the neighborhood. Car owners with off-street parking drive their vehicles more than car owners in areas without off-street parking. We should not actively be adding traffic to the community board. Lastly, I want to say that I love our neighborhood, and I'm not the kind of person to keep something that I like all to myself. I'd be happy to share the neighborhood with new neighbors. We saw deep concern for our neighbors during the pandemic, and I would like to extend that concern to our future neighbors. Let's allow more housing.
Thank you. So next up, we have, do I pronounce your name, Kirsty Jutia?
Kirsty Utila.
Utila? Thank you. Sorry about that.
Hi, Sean.
All right, so let me know when you're ready. Okay.
Good evening, my name is Kirsty Utila. I'm a resident of West Midwood, a homeowner for 20 years. And I'm speaking on behalf of the West Midwood Community Association against the city of Yes items that would affect low density areas. You can be for more housing in your area and against the city of Yes housing plan because the lower density parts are a bad plan that's being rushed through. We oppose the transit-oriented development items at City of Yes because they completely reversed the 2009 Flatbush zoning plan, which preserved our neighborhoods while allowing housing on major corridors. The 2009 plan prevented apartment development on blocks of detached homes and put the new higher density housing along our major corridors. And it worked. New mid-rise housing was constructed, our commercial strips were revitalized, and quiet residential blocks were preserved. But City of Yes transit-oriented development sounds great. I'm all for transit-oriented development, except the details of this particular plan would allow small apartment buildings in R1 through R5 districts and in West Midwood in an R2 district, which the zoning says is a single-family detached district. What is going on? But the City of Yes, as I said, would allow small apartment buildings. So we don't trust the City of Yes housing proposal because the way the study was conducted, it was generic, it was citywide, it was vague. There's no local data, there's no local maps or explanation of the local effects. And when we did research, since we read the zoning, we found that 27 houses in West Midwood that have stood since before 2010, before 1910, could be bought, torn down, and each replaced with a 10-unit 3 to 5 story apartment building.
10 seconds.
Okay, so we urge Community Board 14 to vote no on 3 parts of this. Vote no on transit-oriented development, vote no on ADUs, and vote no on fixes. Last, do not vote yes with conditions. The city will say voted yes, and they will not. They'll just spin that to the press. I just wanted to get that in. I thank you.
Thank you. So next up, we have Robin Redmond, Kotsa, or? Yes, are you? Let me know when you're ready. Yeah, it's your laptop, yeah. We never speak.
For those who don't know, hi, my name is Robin Redmond. I'm the Executive Director of Flatbush Development Corporation. FDC was actually formed almost 50 years ago by homeowners in this community. And because at the time, this neighborhood was redlined, people were diligently, I'm sorry, so we were formed because of the homeowners saw the potential of Flatbush. And they worked diligently to fight against redlining, illegal conversions, and the use of arson to get insurance money for the Victorian homes. Their plight was to save the Victorian Flatbush housing stock. And I say today, congratulations, because the original work that FTC did really did a great job at preserving the housing stock of Flatbush. In 2009, we revisited this plan with city zoning. A lot of people in this room were at these meetings. The community board was instrumental. I mean, Alvin Burke was, like, to me, the Bible of zoning laws, and could just, like, what he knew amazes me to this day. But the amount of work that went into the rezoning plan for Flatbush to make sure that actually the housing stock of Flatbush would be preserved, while we had opportunity to increase the density throughout the greater Flatbush area, and with the promise of more affordable housing. So I stand here today and say, where is the affordable housing that was promised to us back in 2009 with the upzoning of a lot of Flatbush?
What you said.
27.
Okay, and so I guess my asking this is that the city of Yes has a blanket plan And that blanket plan is not looking at the contextual architecture of places like Victorian Flatbush and other neighborhoods throughout New York City. And for that, I stand here today representing the Flatbush Development Corporation, an institution in this community, saying that what is being put before us is not what we hope to see be the future of Flatbush. So thank you.
Thanks.
So before we go to the next public speaker, just a quick procedural note that the letters that we did receive from the various community associations, those will be a part of our public record and that will be a part of what we send to DCP. So I just want to let folks know that. And so we are now going to our next public speaker, Robert, how do I pronounce your name? Goshfeld? Goshfeld?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me know when you're ready.
Great.
Okay.
Try not to repeat what other people said. My name is Robert Goshfeld. I live at 1312 Fitness Avenue in Fitness Park West. My house is at the small end of a street on a block on a wide street within half a mile of the subway station. In other words, everything on my block and my neighbors across the street and up and down Fitness Avenue and also on Dorchester Road could be knocked down and be replaced by 5-story walk-ups. There is no affordability written into this proposal. No matter what you say, it is a volume proposal designed to for politicians to show that they produce hundreds of thousands of extra units. Of course, for several years, but the only way you can get affordability is with tax savings or tax exemptions from the state. This is not an upzoning. This is the dezoning of Dorchester Road in the center. And similar streets elsewhere that are wide streets. And the homeowner. There was a time when homeownership was the American dream. We are now being demonized, and the zoning regulations that protect us as homeowners are being demonized. And this is merely a first step in getting rid of all zoning regulations. If you look at the people who are pushing this, what they want to do is eventually eliminate all zoning regulations, not just the ones that protect us.
20 seconds.
30 seconds. My wife said this sounds like a NIMBY letter. Fitness Park West Neighborhood Association. It's not a white citizens council. We're not a bunch of racists. I'm in opposition to the whole thing.
Thank you so much. Okay, so our next registered public speaker is Ben Turndorf, excuse me. Here we go.
It's not gonna fit.
Thank you. I was ready to yell, but. Good evening, my name is Ben Turndorf, urging council to vote yes on the proposal. I think it's a phenomenal proposal. I am a Flatbush resident. I'm lucky enough to be a homeowner. Most of my friends are not. Most of the people that I know and love are not. They can't afford to live in the city at all. And I watch them leave and leave and leave. They don't have children, or they have children and they leave. They have a second kid and they leave. They take jobs elsewhere. They can't afford to live here. And I think it's critical that we take steps to make it possible for everyone to live in New York that wants to. And I think it's easy to say, not here, not now. But if not here, where do people live? If not now, where will they live? So again, strong urge, yes vote across the board. I think this is an opportunity to open our hearts and our community. Thank you for your time, and
Here's the mic. Thank you so much.
So next up, we have Ron Schreiber.
Can everyone hear me without the mic? I was a teacher for 39 years. I think all the kids heard me. Okay, my name is Ron Schweiger. I'm the official historian for the Borough of Brooklyn. I've been in that position for the last 22 years, appointed by Marty Monkowitz. Eric Adams kept me on when he was the borough president. And Antonio Reynoso didn't even know the position existed. Anyhow, the last time I was in this room was in 2003, when the MTA went to the Ted Valley station. For that meeting. Well, I got the station landmark, so they couldn't tear it down, and they restored it to its original from the original photographs that I have here. Right? We have about 10 or 11 years before Flatbush. About 6 of them are already designated as historic districts. However, a couple that aren't landmarked are adjacent to those landmark communities. So, for example, Beverly Square West, I was president from 1981 to 85 as a renter, as a homeowner. I always wanted the job. Right? So anyhow, this Park South is landmarked. Everyone separates Buster Park south from Beverly Square West. So the northern end of Beverly Square West is getting some of those houses taken down to build several stories of buildings adjacent to a landmark community. The same thing in Dickens Park and Dickens Park West. You have these riding tracks separating the two. However, here in Victoria and Flatbush, the other side of the tracks is just as good as the other side of the tracks. So I think what we have to do is try and get landmarks involved again. Because the last time, I think it was in 2009 or 10, Fisk Terrace, which I helped get landmarked with the park. Landmark Station said they are going to contemplate and think about Beverly Square West and Dickens Park West. But nothing ever came of that. So maybe we can do something to get landmarks involved again, to maybe complete the quilt of Victoria and Flatbush. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. So our next registered public speaker is Eric Parker. Do I have an Eric Parker here? Going once, going twice. Okay. So yes. So next person up is do I have a Roisin Ford? Roisin?
Yes.
Okay, apologies for missing your name.
Someone has to turn on closed caption for YouTube, please.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Rosine Ford. I'm here tonight representing the Dittmas Park West Neighborhood Association. I'm going to spend 20 seconds doing that, but first just 10 seconds about myself and what brings me here. I'm raising 3rd generation of Dittmas Park West residents. My husband grew up here, lived in a nearby neighborhood first, rented, waited. I absolutely share the dream of my friends staying. I felt deeply what you said about having a second kid and leaving. Unfortunately, this isn't the way to do it. This will get us market rate tear downs. This will be a city of 1-bedroom apartments that only benefit the developers who are building it. The way to achieve your goal, which I absolutely share, is by approaching it from a legislative perspective that mandates actual affordability in 2-bedroom apartments where you can keep maybe a car seat in your apartment, maybe you want a suitcase in your apartment without getting a storage unit. This isn't it. This is changing the fabric of our community. This is Dittmas Park West. A lot of the areas are not shaded, but the reds are existing corner homes, which can and will be torn down to make 5-story buildings, which will benefit developers. Let's not pretend that there's going to be any aspect of approachability. I searched and searched for years before finding a home within walkable distance to my kids' grandparents. I deeply feel that struggle. When we found it, it's only because we were able to make a two-family, there's 7 people in the house, it's a 2-bedroom, and so that's my spiel about myself. About my community, 90%, more than 90% of us when polled, felt deeply that while we do not oppose all aspects of the city of Yes, we absolutely oppose transit-oriented housing because of the map, the tear down, what we know what will happen, we've seen it happen before. Requiring larger lot sizes for multiple dwelling residences, something that the community board could please consider proposing, such as 8,500 square feet instead of the proposed 5,000 square feet, which would encompass a lot of an existing housing stock. Additionally, perhaps redefining wide streets to have larger minimum widths. Dorchester Road and Ditmas Avenue, for those of us who walk by them on buses, with strollers, those are not wide streets, and those are wide streets as considered under this legislation, and that's ridiculous. These are not wide streets as we know it. Here, we know what a wide street is, and that's not it. This process did not have effective communication to the public about this massive change in the zoning of all 1 through 5. Thank you. Our numbers in the record. Thank you.
Microphone, that are watching online and don't understand anything. If you could all speak loud without the microphone, we'd actually be able to understand everything everyone saying.
Stand in front of the podium. Say that again, please.
Live stream.
Really?
Probably.
Is there feedback probably between them?
Is there a mic?
Let's stand in the middle, perhaps.
Okay, so let's try that. So here we go.
In a little by the door.
To see if people can just project and not.
So let's try this then. It looks like we have a comment where the mic may be creating a feedback for the people who are watching online. And so what we will try is, can people stand by the doorway and then project and then
To these.
to these mics here?
This doorway?
Yes, so try and stand there and then project towards these mics and we'll see if that does it. Okay? So our next registered speaker is Jeffrey Thomas. So Jeffrey, can you try that? Can you try standing right by the exit sign and projecting towards these mics? Apologies for that.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jeffrey Thomas, and I wish to respectfully speak in favor of voting on City of Yes. I live on Avenue C in Twin Island Avenue. I live in one of the 6-story relatively recent buildings. I think it fits with the neighborhood. I don't think that these large buildings are going to be all that surprising, all that out of place. I don't think it's going to completely disrupt the neighborhood. And the other major reason I wish that we would vote yes is this is a citywide proposal. When you say, there's affordability concerns, the city has a housing crisis as a whole. People need places to live. If every community board, if every neighborhood provides a little bit of housing, that will help every community board keep the character it wants, keep the positions.
Thank you so much.
How was that for people in the back? That was, the volume was better, you could hear? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. So our next registered public speaker is Patrick Hart. Patrick Hart. Once, twice, next up. Okay. So our next registered speaker is Ari S. Ari, okay, thank you. So same thing, Ari, could you stand under the exit and project towards the microphones, please?
Okay.
Thank you so much, appreciate that.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I think I'll be quick because people before me have expressed what I'm gonna say anyway. I've lived in this neighborhood for about 30 years. My parents lived here for about 30 years as well. Then we have our house.
Louder, please.
Oh, okay. Basically what I'm gonna say is that yes, affordability is a crisis in New York, and we've all felt that in some way. But I think the proposal doesn't have enough precautions put in place to protect neighborhoods and protect existing residents. And I think in theory, the thought that all of this housing is gonna create a lower price of housing is a nice theory, but I think in reality, we've all seen what happened in other neighborhoods in Brooklyn. And we understand that that developers will like target Brooklyn first because it's already hot, build here and increase the cost of living here, as well as change the way our neighborhood is and functions and make it more of a transient neighborhood where the block I live on, everyone has lived on for 30 years, and that's been something that I've appreciated growing up. So I think it changes a lot, and the theory of increased affordability is a nice theory, but I think in actuality, it's not written into place, and these apartments will likely be market value and start in Brooklyn, and that's what it will be. And I think in changing this, we could do more focused research. I think somebody already said that on specific neighborhoods, because each neighborhood has its own, I guess, aspects going on and different things that will be effective. So a blanket policy is not necessarily blanketly effective. Okay, thank you.
So our next registered speaker is Jason Glick. Jason Glick. Okay, so then our next registered speaker is Candace Tovar.
Hi, my name is Candace Tovar. I've lived on Westminster Road for the last 38 years. I know you've cautioned us. Sorry, that was the last person. Okay. I know you've cautioned us not to repeat one another, and I don't know why, because those of us who are here obviously have very strong feelings about why we would be here. So to repeat the fact that, yes, we're not racist. Our neighborhoods have changed. And we're not all old people. I know that younger people have more difficulty affording our neighborhood. I don't think tearing down houses and adding 5 or 6 story buildings, we've seen it on Argyle Avenue. I don't think that is going to solve our housing crisis just for the benefit of the developers, just for the benefit of saying that we've torn down a single family house, depriving them just one family of a place to live, to give maybe 10 families a place to live, who maybe have to spend a lot less money than they would in Manhattan, but more money than they would someplace else. I don't think having to create parking or not create parking is going to solve our housing crisis. And I think there are other ways to try to solve our housing crisis without destroying something. I don't see it happening on the Upper East Side. I don't see it happening on the Upper West Side. I don't see it happening in Brooklyn Heights. And even though it is citywide, here we come because we are single family. And I don't need to take any more time. Thank you.
So thank you very much for that testimony, Candace. And so I need to apologize because I had called out Jason Glick and Patrick Hart. And these are 2 individuals who had said they were unable to attend, but they had submitted their testimony written wise. And they did say that they would like it to be read out loud. So I apologize. So I will read Jason Glick's public testimony, and then I will read Patrick Hart's public testimony. So I apologize for that mistake. So I am now going to start with Jason Glick's testimony.
You have 2 minutes.
Will do. Start the clock, right? So Jason Glick is a resident of Community District 14, and Jason Glick wrote, "I am unavailable to attend, but write to submit this written testimony in support of the City of Yes proposal as it relates to zoning changes. While recognizing the heartfelt concerns of many of my neighbors, we are in the midst of a housing crisis. Our neighborhood has never been static in terms of housing types. We used to be farmland. Over time, many single-family homes were converted to apartment buildings. Since the last debates over zoning, the housing crisis has worsened. NYC has a desperate need for new housing, and we cannot stand in the way of reasonable adjustments that will continue to preserve a significant number of single-family homes for property owners who so choose, while allowing for reasonable growth, rezoning over time. Some of my neighbors with heartfelt concerns point to the fact that there is an agreement to downzone certain blocks from years ago. While they are more familiar with the specific history than I am, I note that after extensive conversations with neighbors, I believe I am informed enough to say confidently that I would have opposed the downzoning of my block at the time, and that prior downzoning decisions can and must be revisited when we are in a homelessness, housing, and affordability crisis. I recognize that there are strong and informed voices on all sides of this issue and ask that my opinion be treated with respect. So that is the written testimony of Jason Link. Okay, and so now what I will do is I will read the public testimony of Patrick Hart. Patrick Hart is the second individual. You can't hear me in the back? Okay, good. I just want to confirm. I couldn't tell if you can hear me. So now I will read the public testimony of Patrick Hart. This was the individual I had called publicly, and I was reminded that this person couldn't attend, but had submitted written testimony and asked that it be read. So Patrick Hart's testimony says, I am unfortunately unable to attend this meeting in person, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to provide comments. I would like to register my support of the City of Yes plan. We badly need more housing in our neighborhoods and communities across the city, including in CB14. I think we have many opportunities for adding housing in transit accessible areas in our district, and I would like others to have the opportunity my husband and I had to come live and work in the wonderful neighborhoods of CB14. I'm mindful that the building we live in provides many housing units, yet would not be allowable according to the current zoning in many parts of our neighborhood. I support the City of Yes zoning text amendment, and I appreciate all the work the City Planning Department has done to move this forward and all the work that CB14 does to support our community every day. Thank you. So folks, thank you for allowing me to read their testimony into the record. And so next up on our list of registered speakers, we have Sarah McKenna.
I thought you said that you were, that was the last person.
Oh, no.
All right, well, I'm a resident of Divis Park West. I'm on Argyle Road between Divis and Dorchester. I've lived here for 20 years. We were thrilled with the 2009 rezoning. I think that I can speak for everyone in the whole neighborhood saying that we are very pro affordable housing and everyone wants to solve these problems. I do think that this particular proposal, City of Yes, would really harm the character of our neighborhood. I think we are a very unique neighborhood in New York City. I think the proposal in general, as stated, this very generic sort of blanket plan for the city, I think it will fundamentally alter the nature of the city. I think there needs to be a lot more thought put into it, a lot more thought into the definitions. You know, someone prior to me mentioned the definition of wide streets. I think Divis and Dorchester are not at all wide streets. I'm going to echo that. And similarly, I think a lot as small as 5,000 square feet really can't really sustain a 6-story walk-up apartment building. I think that this proposal is something that is very threatening to what we all enjoy here as a neighborhood in New York City. And I'd like to ask to vote no on the definition of wide streets and vote no on lots as small as 5,000 square feet, and to really put more thought and care into engaging the communities in defining a plan that for affordable housing for our city that we can all stand on.
Thank you very much. So next, our next public registered speaker is Ann Gadet.
You can do it.
Hi, my name's Ann Bodette. I'm representing Cape Park Association, which is the northernmost micro neighborhood in Victorian Flatbush. We're a divided community, meaning that half of the housing stock is already built, co-ops or rentals, and as existing. and the other half is Victorian inventory. So I'm here to speak on behalf of the R31 zoning that was part of the 2009 zoning text that was recently done that Robin Redmond referred to, as did others. So I'm not going to re-review that. That text was created with a lot of input from many, many stakeholders. And I think it was given a lot of care and concern and allowed for growth. And it was particularly, in part, it refused to allow the middle of the blocks for these homes to be peppered with apartment houses. So there are commercial corridors that exist in all of these neighborhoods. And I'm not really clear how it would affect the context of the communities that are not landmarked. A little more than half of the non-landmark communities are really at risk of being destroyed. So, and that puts an odd spin on something that's been so cherished for such a long time. So there are sections, sorry.
30 seconds.
There are sections of this that we support, and that's the town hall, absolutely. Part of the ADUs, but not bulking up and taking all of it just within the building. I think if you want to add one more unit from the existing, that's fine. Yeah. But the point is that the 2009 text was done without this broadcasting of sweeping, like throw everything out on the table and darts at a map, but rather it allowed for growth, particularly in the lower density districts, in a thoughtful, considered, and reasoned manner. So I'm here to request that you vote no on most of this proposal. Thank you very much.
So that concludes the part of the public testimony for the pre-registered speakers. Now we're moving to the testimony for those that signed up in the back with Sarah. And so first up, we have Louise Sherkis.
My home is in Beverly Square West, and I think I can add a little more color to the situation. My home is on Beverly Road. It is a corner house on Beverly Road. It was built in 1892, before Brooklyn was part of the city. History is something that does matter to us here. And I do agree with the landmarking issue, and also with those who are talking about the definition of wide streets and the size of lots having to be re-examined here, but who are really focusing on this particular Beverly Road. I'm 2 blocks from the subway, and I can tell you the parking is, and we don't have the parking is just for cleaning the streets, that's all. And it's constantly, the Uber drivers and vans and trucks are always parking there, south side of the street, and everyone's walking, and there's constantly litter, and I'm always cleaning all that. But the bottom line is, it's still a nice, friendly neighborhood. Everyone wants to come. I'm a block from where the Halloween, parade is, and there's a beauty to this neighborhood that, while of course, affordable housing is a very important thing. This is such an overbroad, naive proposal that really has not been properly examined. That I say we really should vote no, and certainly with regard to those particular issues, refocus on that, because the community needs to have some say. And in fact, I was one of the people who spoke in front of Marty Markowitz in 2009 with regard to the zoning issues. And we were very it was heartfelt when we were able to protect the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. So then our next speaker is Mark. How do I pronounce your last name?
Yar.
Yar? Okay,
It's like mine.
thank you.
So, my name is Mark Yar. I'm a New Yorker. Spent most of his life living in Brooklyn. Last 40 years, I've been lucky enough to live in a single-family home in this neighborhood on Rugby Road. Over that time, just as the city has changed, I've seen the neighborhood change generally for the better. Long before the mayor's proposal was advanced, many folks, including myself, advocated for upzoning commercial strips like Coney Island Avenue and implementing transit-oriented development strategies throughout the city. Why? Fundamental to the issue is that in a dense, highly built environment like a city, how do we accommodate a growing population? How do we address the enormous need for additional housing, most notably affordable housing? The 2023 Housing and Vacancy Survey found that the city's vacancy rate was 1.41%. 99% of all units are occupied. Netting out the migrant population, every night, roughly 50 to 60,000 people go to sleep in shelters, not because they're insane, but simply because they're poor. Since 2021, the city added 275,000 households, but only 60,000 apartments were built. If you're a young adult, you need to double or triple up with roomies. If you're elderly and on a fixed income, you need to choose between shelter and other essentials. If you're an immigrant, you need to live in a legal apartment in basement apartment in Queens. If you're a young family, you can't buy a home. If you're an artist on a skipping income, you need to think about living elsewhere. We need more housing and we need more affordable housing. So I understand, based on these discussions, my own experience in the neighborhood, why people fear some of the dimensions of the proposed plan. But fundamentally, I think it's sound, and I don't believe it'll compromise the neighborhood's character. The debate around this is all a good thing. The city's going to change. During my lifetime, it has been transformed, following the dire predictions of many people. Proposed the rezoning is designed to ensure that future change occurs in a thoughtful, fair, equitable manner.
That's
As
time.
opposed to a chaotic
Thank you.
one-off manner. This proposal attempts to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So folks, quick status update. So there are currently 9 speakers left. And the question I have is, so there's 9 speakers left. And so the question I have is for the people who signed up, who I've yet to call, do you have a point to raise that you feel has not been raised by the testimony you have heard so far?
Can I ask a question? Part of my 2 minutes?
You may ask the question, yes.
Can you describe, I'm late to the game. I saw the last pre-recorded meeting here. And it showed landmark areas being just as able to do the ends of corner blocks as non-landmark. Is that a mischaracterization? Or, for instance, I'm from PPS and it shows Albemarle Road.
That question could be asked to DCP when we look at each of the items individually. That question could be asked to DCP when we look at each of the items individually after the board members deliberate.
Okay.
We'll catch you up.
Then I would like to talk.
And then I thought I saw, I'll take 2 more questions. Is that a question or you're saying you have to speak? So,
She has a question.
okay, yes. What is your question?
No, I just wanted to say that the point that has not brought it in is the fact that we don't have that the infrastructure to bring all these new buildings, because this is a neighborhood that we have had as of single houses. We have already issues of big buildings on Portelli Road, and studies have been done where the sidewalks are very small, the schools are full, there is no spaces, there is no parking space, the parks are full, there's everything, so not be brought up the fact that we don't have the infrastructure. And we as a community have worked for 30 years. We have planted trees. We have created a community where we have all the amenities for the community. We work every day, and when people come into these buildings, it has been
Thank you,
documented.
Cecilia, thank you for making a point about infrastructure that hadn't been made before. Thank you. That's time.
So we'll make that part of the record. Okay. And so the next person to speak is Paul Parkhill.
Thanks, I'll try to make this quick. I know a lot of people have spoken. So my name is Paul Parkhill. I'm a resident of 35 Waldorf Court in West Midwood. I live directly at the street end adjacent to the Q train tracks. I'm an urban planner with about 30 years of experience in community development, including supportive housing development. So I'm not just an advocate for affordable housing, but I've actually built it. Additionally, 20 years ago, I worked at the Greenpoint Manufacturing Design Center and served on the Community Board 1 task force for the Greenpoint Land Representative. Before we get into specifics, just some context, at roughly 29,000 residents per square mile, New York City is by far the densest city in the country, even accounting for its sprawling 300 square mile footprint, which includes all Staten Island. That's the next densest major cities in the country, San Francisco and Boston, are each 18,600 per square mile and 14 per square mile. In Chicago, the next densest city with a large geographic footprint, has a density of about 12,000 people per square mile, roughly 40% of New York. Oh, I'm sorry. The City of Yes proposal in its most generous interpretation attempts to reflect fair share and equity goals by rejecting the last 70 years of contextual zoning practice. Rather than looking at the specifics of neighborhoods and tailoring informed plans based on building typology, adjacent zoning districts, neighborhood history, and the brutal realities of a globalized speculative real estate industry, the city has chosen to throw up its hands to take a one-size-fits-all approach. The results, if passed, will be a series of ad hoc, poorly constructed projects that will leave the city less livable without any particular guarantee that it will be more affordable. West Midwood, a low-density district which is surrounded by higher-density zones, is not a bulwark against either diversity or density. Anyone who has spent any time in Newport Plaza or Coney Island knows this. I just wanted to say, I know my time is up. I support the goals of the carbon neutrality and economic opportunity components, but I think the housing opportunity really needs a lot more.
Okay, so our next speaker is Abe, and is your last name Kirschenblatt?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good job.
Abe Kirschenblatt, and next month I'll be living here 40 years. Right here on Waldorf Court.
Happy anniversary.
I'm not really. So I really want to support the city of Yes. When I heard about it 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago.
Louder.
And I read it, and then I reread it, and then I read it a few more times. And there's a big word up there called affordability. It's not really being promoted in this. There's a little part, if you put up a building with, let's say, 30 units, and if you give a little bit of affordable housing in there, you get 20% affordable. That's 6 units in a 30-unit building. That's about it. Everything else that is in here that we've all been talking about is basically, the way I read it, just a land grab for people who develop, and it'll cause, let's say, those big houses on the corners. People hold out for the best price they can get, so that's going to drive prices up on the home, which will then be ripped down, and new buildings going up are going to be what I've seen going with my daughter and son-in-law to find a place to live around here. And all these type of buildings that they're talking about, these small 5-6-story buildings, the average cost of a 2-bedroom apartment is anywhere between 800,000 to about $1.5 million. I'm talking about Prospect Heights, Crown Heights, Windsor Terrace, Sunset Park. So what I just wanted to point out is that everything that we see up here about diversity, affordability,
neighbors, families. Where's the affordable housing that this is supposed to really help? You'll have more housing, but it's not gonna be affordable. Thank you very much. If it's a board for the city of yes, please vote no.
So next up, we have Jeffrey, actually, Jeffrey, you spoke already. Okay. So next up, we have Joan Griffiths Vega.
You want to speak from there?
Yeah.
Okay.
But thank you for
Yep.
consideration. I don't know whether you have this letter. So I'm here.
I do. Yeah.
So I'm here representing the Fisk Terrace Association, which includes Avenue H, this space, all the way down to Glenwood, on the island, Ocean Avenue. I can finally, after 10 years, tell you what this community is and its boundaries. I want to read a letter that was written by our association in a rather rapid fire way. So can you hear me? Yes. The Fisk Terrace Association, excuse me, I can't always remember objects of life. The Fisk Terrace Association, established in 1907, recognizes the need for more affordable housing in New York City, particularly in proximity to public transportation. However, the association would like to go on record in opposition to the city of yes plan zoning changes affecting our neighborhood and all the neighborhoods comprising Victorian and Flatbush, specifically permitting as of right development, as of right development of accessory dwellings units or multiple dwelling units without any analysis or neighborhood plan could easily turn the Victorian Flatbush into a hodgepodge of incompatible structures and to destroy the fabric of our area that our and other neighborhoods associations have fought long and hard to preserve. Support zoning changes that will increase density on commercial streets such as Foster Avenue, Cordelia Road, Coney Island Avenue, Church Avenue, especially near the Brighton lines, which are also served by various local and express buses. Well, these locations could afford new residents of our area better transit access than they would get within the residential space and provide better access to services, shopping, and public green spaces in that are Prospect Park, the parade ground, etc. Our residential areas do not have any public space. And parking by residents, commuters and Brooklyn. Sorry.
That letter will be in our record.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. We came here and we saw that the greenery in this neighborhood is actually denser from space if you take a look at Penn Park Slope. And I think it's so valuable and people disregard what it means to the quality of our lives.
And the next speaker is?
So our next speaker is, and I apologize because I may butcher your name. Is it Olgier Billinau?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Pretty good.
I'm trying.
All right, you want to new stuff? I'm gonna keep it brief. 3 points. Everyone keeps talking about the corner lots, but if I understood the recording of the previous thing, you can combine lots, right? Say, hey, I just bought the 2 corner lots, you're next. Do you want to live next to a construction site or do you want to sell out? You do that down the line, the developer could buy out a whole block. So it's not just, hey, a little bit on the corner and everything else is peachy keen. You're talking about, the possibility of the whole neighborhood falling like dominoes. And if that's what people want, fine, but let's not just say it's a little bit here and everything else stays the same. Second thing, the homeowners who are there and everyone who's spoken here, keep in mind, these people are leaving money on the table. Anyone who would sell would cash out, apartment building comes up, they're rich. So these are people saying voluntarily, I want to stay in this neighborhood rather than take the cash. And so I hope people appreciate that. That's shows the love for the neighborhood, right? Developers are coming in here for money. These are people who want to stay because they really love this place. One proposal I can have, just if this is gonna go through citywide, but we have a chance to say, add a clause, say anything that's been rezoned in the last 20 years, this neighborhood already did their thing. Carve that out. Other neighborhoods who didn't try to do an upzoning like they did here in 2009, leave that out because they are, we already contributed once, we don't have to contribute twice. And the last on that is CB14, the board should decide where things get developed, not do a blanket thing and let developers choose. Why do you want to abrogate your, decision making to people who just come in and make money?
Yeah.
All right, so we have 2 speakers left. Our next speaker is James Dougal.
Hello. Yes. If you want, you can speak from where you are. You're pretty central.
Okay. I came late to this. By that, I mean, I found out about it about 3 o'clock. And some people sent stuff around. I am from Prospect Park South. I'm a former president of the board, but I do not represent the board. I'm just here tonight as a resident. When I was watching the video of the Midwood, it showed all of Prospect Park South, which was the first landmark historic neighborhood in Brooklyn of all the Victorian neighborhoods. And a lot of our predecessors and people I know from years ago fought very hard back in 1976, 79 to get landmarks. And if I saw the purple correctly, indeed, landmarks areas are included in this low density build on the corner idea. If that's the case, I find it completely absurd. What is landmarks? Landmarks for a while, landmarks till change comes. Landmarks has to mean something. We're living in a crazy time right now where truth doesn't mean truth. We moved into the neighborhood because it was landmarks. And for somebody to come along and say, well, but that's not right. And I also appreciate all my other neighborhoods in the neighborhoods who haven't gotten the landmark. And, I think, I support them as well. But certainly, I mean, are you going to knock down houses in Greenwich Village? Are you going to, it's like going to all the great places in the world, say, oh, we're going to take 20% of these houses. We're going to go to the French Quarter in New Orleans. Oh, let's put a high rise there. Oh, we're going to go to where? A neighborhood in Paris? It's just beyond me. If that's the case, if I'm wrong, I retract it all.
And our last speaker is, for public testimony wise, we have George Glatter.
That's the least.
Do you want a drum roll?
Just a question first. My name is George Blatter. I'm on Westminster Road here. Is this true that within the landmark district, properties can be included in the city of Yes?
DC,
seems to be a mystery.
Only for accessory dwelling units.
Just add a unit behind,
Yes.
okay. All right, anyway, my name is George Blair. I was with the city for a long time. I was fortunate to head city's business improvement district program, which I think was one of the most successful programs the city's ever had. And what's the secret to the success? Every bid is different. Every bid is based on what the business is. And the residents in that community feel important to that community. That's why, when I was there, 52 bids went through city planning, city council, all approved. It's not that kind of thing. This is a one-size-fits-all, which doesn't fit all. And clearly, there are so many neighborhoods in this city, like commercial districts are so different, neighborhoods are so different. And you've got to take into account when you create this kind of a program, that there are gonna be neighborhoods that'll fit perfectly, those that it has to be modified, those that it just doesn't belong. And I don't think that a one size fits all does that. That's why I would say no. It's appropriate.
You want to see if DCP will clarify before the board begins to deliberate?
So, Ms. McLatter,
Yes.
your question regarding the inclusion or not of properties within landmarks, could either one of you two answer this question before we get to that part?
Yeah, anything that is currently governed by the Landmarks Commission would continue to be governed by the Landmarks Commission.
Right. Okay, so what you're gonna have is this patchwork within these neighborhoods of 6-story houses here. Oh, this is a landmark. We leave this alone. This starts all over again. And what was said before is probably true. Once you find that you're gonna be next door to a 6-story apartment house, get out. So this is just a ridiculous proposal.
Thank you for that.
Board members introduce themselves before you begin.
Yes, I think fit from that images.
In order to make a change to your property in a landmark area, you have to get approval from the Landmarks Preservation Commission. So that is true now, and it would be true under this proposal.
In the front and backyards?
Purple map. So on the low density that said it was included on your last presentation here.
I'd have to look at the,
So the purple, yeah, so this is the area in which the landmark portion is not marked here. It should be. So.
Please stand.
So this map shows the greater transit area. If you meet all of the criteria of the TOD proposal, then you could proceed with that new construction on the lots that are eligible. If you are in a landmark area, however, you have to get approval from the Landmarks Preservation Commission before you can do that. You can take advantage of that program. So that's the Landmarks Preservation Commission has to make that. Oh, what makes the lot eligible? Yes, that is a great question. Yes, I can answer that. Has to be 5,000 square feet or larger. It has to be at the narrow end of the block along a wide street. Or it has to be on the narrow end of a block or along a wide street.
what does that mean?
So actually,
Wait.
so no problem. So there's a few things. There was a question about landmarks that's segueing into the transit-oriented development. And so what we'll do is, since we've concluded the public testimony part, now we're getting to the time portion of our agenda where the board members will discuss items. And so the first item on the docket is transit-oriented development. We have a 20-minute discussion window for that. And before we do that, all of us are going to go around the table and introduce ourselves.
Board members.
Board members, right? So I'm Carl Henry Cesar. I go by Carl, and I'm the board chairperson.
I'm Greg Alvarez. I'm a board member, co-chair of the Land Use and Housing and Land Use Committee. Thank you.
And Glenn Wolin, a board member.
Joel Siegel, board member.
Deborah Valentine, board member.
Yes, here.
Steve Cohen, board member.
Davina Bolanot, newly appointed board member.
Gail Smith, board member.
Erica Jones, board member.
We want to go to the people.
Go ahead, Liz.
Oh, right. Elizabeth Dennings, board member.
Thomas Mack, board member. Nora Pena, new member.
Joanne Brown, board member, co-chair of Housing and Land Use Committee.
Barton Present, board member.
Dr. Jace, board member and co-chair of the Human Services Committee.
Shahid Khan, board member. William Hazar, board member.
Chris Alfonso, newly appointed board member. Board member.
Kendall Washington, newly appointed board member.
Dawn Walker, board member.
Did we miss anybody? Yeah.
Alex Sussman, new board member.
Board members, do you all have worksheets?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So do all the board members have their worksheets?
Yeah.
Okay, and so I will start the timer. And then we will
Oh.
begin.
Yeah. All right, so our first item of, on the list of zoning text amendments is the transit-oriented development provision. This would allow 3 to 5-story apartment buildings on large lots that are wide streets, 75 foot or larger, or on corners and within a half a mile of subway or rail stations. So that's the general overview. Maybe we ask the DCP just to run through the requirements again real quick in terms of the applicable lots.
Yes, thank you for that. As you can see on the screen, in order to be applicable, in order for your lot to qualify for the TOD portion of the proposal, you have to be within half a mile of transit. The lot must be 5,000 square feet or larger. You must be on the short end of the block or facing a street that is over 75 feet wide. And the building that you could build as of right on that lot would be, the height of that building would be determined by the zoning district that you are in. There is a chart that says what those sort of heights are. It's not all 5 feet, but the maximum under this proposal would be, 5 stories. The maximums under this proposal would be 5 stories, about, I believe, 35 feet. 35 feet. That's in the highest density iteration of this proposal, although the lower density districts have lower densities associated with them as well. The purple area represents that transit zone that is being defined by this proposal. It doesn't mean that anywhere in the purple area you can take advantage of the program. You have to meet all the requirements of the program in order to do that.
Okay, thank you very much.
So you skip one point. The 3 to 5 stories, what zoning are we talking about?
R1, R2.
Specifically, well,
R1, R2, R3.
Yeah. Because in the higher areas, you could build higher than 5 stories anyway, so it would be.
All right, so what we're looking for with each of these items is an action that we can take, and then based on that action, to provide any associated recommendations, conditions that we want to attach to our overall statements to the Borough President's office.
So prior to discussing motions, is there any discussion amongst board members about specifically transit-oriented development?
So let me recognize Board Member Siegel, then Board Member Denise, and then Board Member Board Member Cohen, then Denise, and Siegel. Yes.
As regards Victorian Flatbush, I'm sorry.
No. Joe can start.
As regards Victorian Flatbush, this is, in my opinion, outrageous. Okay? It is a kick in the teeth for those of us who worked on this 2009 change in the zoning. We provided for more housing. Look at Coney Island Avenue, look at all the buildings going up, look at the areas where there could be continued building along Coney Island Avenue, look at Foster Avenue. That was the product of the work we did in 2009. And I don't mean anything against the fellas here, but it says to us, to those of us who worked on this, you cannot trust the Department of City Planning. You cannot. Because if you make an arrangement with them, they'll pull the rug right out from under you. But I'm going to appeal to my board members. And I'll tell you one other thing about this thing. It pits neighbor against neighbor. Okay? We have a very cohesive community here, and this will do nothing but pit neighbor against neighbor. And that's an awful, awful thing. It's outrageous. But I'm going to appeal to my fellow board members. As someone else pointed out, you're abdicating your power here if you give into this. You're abdicating. We make decisions on land use here, okay? And your community here, there are a number of people who want affordable housing, and that's wonderful. But you heard people here speak. This isn't going to be affordable housing, okay? That's not what's going on here. And if you vote in favor of this, you're voting to support deception, okay? That's it.
Thank you, Board Member.
So I guess, in terms of if we wanted to have attached conditions, two things that I did here that I think were very good points that were made by community members. Number one, some of the neighborhoods in Victoria and Flatbush are landmarked, and some seemingly very analogous, very similar housing stock neighborhoods are not. So I would think, in the event that we were to, go along with this to some degree, I think we should try to find some way where the non-landmark neighborhoods are enabled a certain amount of period expedited to get landmark status, so they would be treated just like their neighbors that are landmarked and have these restrictions. The second thing is the point was made about wide streets, including like Glenwood Road, like areas that have median strips, and I think that's a great point. That in terms of wide streets, you'd think of somewhere that their double parking would be possible. If we're adding extra units, then there's going to be more deliveries, more Amazon trucks, Fresh Direct. Let's say you can't; those deliveries are not going to be possible on the streets in our neighborhoods that have medians, like Glenwood Road, like Albemarle, like East 17th. So to the extent that we were going to say yes with conditions, I think we would want to say wide streets does not include the streets in our neighborhoods that have these medians that do not enable double parking, where if a truck is going to stop and make delivery, you're blocking the entire road. So just want to make those 2 points. Thank you.
So next up, I have Board Member Neese and then Board Member Stern.
All right, I wanted to note, first off, that the vast majority of housing that gets built in the city is by right, including in our own district. So if we want to realistically be building homes, we need to make it to be by right. The ULURP process adds substantial time delays to housing and housing delayed and housing denied, as well as creating additional costs by having to hobby lobbyists and lawyers and so forth for a long period of time. TOD provides the most carbon friendly way of having more housing because people won't need cars. And just, want to note as well that, if we were to landmark everything in this neighborhood, there'd be no potential for growth. And I think everyone here has said that we need to have some potential for growth. This seems like a very sensible process to me, in no small part because there are many, many homes that have larger than 3 to 5 story buildings within Victorian Flatbush. If you look just down the street on Avenue H, there is a more than 6-story home there. I biked by many of them on my way here, and I've biked by many of them as I get around the district. And I want to also just note that the literal most, as someone who has had to shop for finding a home, both renting and buying since the 2009 rezoning that has been mentioned, the most expensive homes by far are the single family detached homes in this neighborhood. They are not affordable to people of my generation unless they inherit them. If people want to stay in this neighborhood, we need to come up with other housing options that aren't just preserving and single family homes without any possibility for growth. Anyone who lives in a single family home on a corner lot can make sure they sell it to someone who is going to continue living in it as a single family home should they desire it. The people who would get the cash, this is my time, you had your time. The people who get the cash, the people who would profit the most from this would be people who would be selling them to developers. And we shouldn't, at the end of the day, I think it's unreasonable to say that developers make the most money here when we're talking about numbers of families who can be home, have homes and live in this wonderful neighborhood we all live in. And, when we're talking about how the most expensive housing right now, the true luxury housing in our area are single family homes. And this is a way, in my opinion, to preserve as many of those as possible while still allowing for growth. I understand a lot of people here have disagreements on it, and I have been listening very eagerly to your testimony. I just wanted to provide that as a different point of view, just because, when we talk about this 2009 rezoning, the housing crisis has only severely worsened since then. And my generation and younger generations are going to feel that impact the most. And I want them to have the possibility of living in New York without being incredibly rich, and just continuing to have the great city we all love. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for that. And so just to let people know, board members, we have 10 minutes and 50 seconds left. So I believe we have Gail Smith and then Glenn Wolin.
I really don't, know how to put this, because the first thing that I heard when people were speaking about this was that we're not racist, basically. And God knows we are not. I've been in this community, and you can tell I'm not white, okay? I've been in this community for over 40 years, and I love this community.
Okay, why? Because of the diversity that we have here. Can I afford a Victorian home? No. But dagnabbit, I love the apartment building I live in. So I think we need to just look at everything that's being said, not just from us as community board members, but from those folks who spoke today. And when they talked about affordability, and then they're asking, where is affordability? When they talked about landmarks, why is it some areas have it and others don't? I mean, there were just so many different things that were spoken about. So for me, even though I do disagree with my brother about the medians on Glenwood Road versus Dorchester Road, which is definitely not a wide street, and I live on Dorchester Road. But I do feel that we need to think further about this, and I would vote no.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Glenn Mullen and then Co-Chair Joanne Brown.
Just a couple of points. First off, for those of you who live in the landmark areas, he didn't say that you were immune. He said that they were not responsible for making a decision. A little pressure out of City Hall and Landmarks Commission may just start giving approval. So let's not think that you're safe. Okay, nobody is safe right now. I was one of the people in the center of the rezoning. Spent 4.5 years working on that. And to be able to downzone, Mayor Bloomberg said, okay, you have to upzone certain areas to allow for growth. It's not that we don't want affordable housing. I want to see the big buildings go up with affordable housing in them. There's a proposal right now to put an 11-story building where the Kentucky Fried Chicken is, and right next door, a 15-story building that may or may not happen. It's in the works. These are good things because they get extra floors for adding affordable housing. And we need more of that. But that doesn't mean we have to carve up the existing neighborhoods. That's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Oh, we got one last thing.
If we're going to put any conditions in here, that we should have in here that this not all be as of right, that it should come through the community boards, just as many other land use items do. So that we have some amount of say. Now, we don't get a final decision on these things, but at least we can have a say, and you in the community would have a chance to also come in and have a say. So I think that would be a very important difference that is not included in the current City of Yes. And now I'm done. Thank you.
Well, first, I just want to say really thank you to all of you that came here today, because your voices is really like added a lot of input to, this process here. And it was really great to see. I've never seen this room so full before. So my issue right now is the fact that it is a citywide proposal. I recently learned of the rezoning in Cambridge where they wanted to do something very similar, Cambridge, Mass, something very similar. But the public engagement was 4 years, not 60 days, right? And so we can put all the conditions that we want here tonight, but I think actually those conditions should come from a real meaningful public process, something that is ongoing, where they are analyzing each individual area and how it's going to impact you. And then you can help make decisions. Because ultimately what happened in Cambridge after that 4-year process was that a lot of the residents said, you know what? ADUs is a good thing because now my kid can actually live near me or my mom could live near me. But it took 4 years to get to those decisions. So my feeling right now is that, and I perhaps will bring this motion forward, is to disapprove this part of the plan. Unless there is a carve out of Victorian Brooklyn so that we can have a meaningful public process where you can weigh your options, what you need in each of your neighborhoods. And again, thank you all for being here tonight.
No, just board members.
Oh, yes.
I just.
Wait. before going to you, are there any other board members who have, are there any other board members, who have not spoken, who have something new to add? And we have 5 minutes left of the topic. Board Member Khan?
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, I just want to share that this is not a matter of say yes, and this is not a matter of say no. This is an ongoing process. And we need to think about what is the best for our community. I know I came in this country in 2010, and there was a time there was no Muslim holiday. But with our discussion, with our dialogue, with our meetings, now we have 2 holidays. Now there is a community affairs, Mr. Nuzi is here. There was a time we have one of the biggest Muslim community mosque here. And once we have no option for control our traffic on Friday or our religious holidays. But now we have a bunch of community affairs of police officers, maybe 10, maybe 15, and now they control our traffic. So this is not a matter of yes or no. This is a matter of discussion, our dialogue, to continue this process and make possible and make yes for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say as regards Joanne's comments, which I thank her for, that the people here from
Louder.
I'm sorry, I wanted to thank Joanne for her comments. The people from DCP hear us. They know we want more time to think about this. I would take the advice of one person who spoke and said, don't put conditions because they'll twist them. I think we need to vote no. They heard that we want to work, they'll report to their people. These people need more time to deal with this.
May I just respond to that quickly?
The problem is that when you say no, just say no. But if you say disapprove, you're saying no, unless you do X, Y, and Z. Now, I know what you're saying about twisting those things, but we will be very clear, because if you say no and everybody else in the city says yes, you don't give yourself any opportunity to have an argument.
Joanne was our chair.
Clarification.
All right.
Yeah.
Should ask for discussion.
So folks, so board members, do we have any more discussion on this item? Okay, so then hearing none, is there a motion?
I make a motion to do what Joanne just said.
So, could that motion please be restated?
Yeah.
All right. Let me see if I can verbalize it in a way that makes the community feel secure. And it would be that this board, the recommendation to the full board would be to disapprove the transit-oriented development unless the Victorian neighborhoods, and we will list them out explicitly, can be engaged in a lengthy and meaningful public process where they can come to decisions that make sense for their communities. Yes.
I would just propose maybe that we should include the single family homes in Midwood in addition. Just I don't think anyone's spoken for Midwood, but
Well, we don't have any representatives from Midwood here tonight, and the only thing is that I just want to say that the district fixes are going to take away that BSA process, and I think that they're going to be happy with that because they'll be able to make their enlargements as they wish. But we can include them, but I don't want to speak for them.
Just to put, and that's on me because of the scheduling on top of a holiday, but I have reached out to that community to try to get some input. And yes, in the special permit district, there is some support because what they've been doing through special permit would be allowed as of right. But just to put a kind of a bow around what you said, would it be the Victorian neighborhoods involved in the 2009 rezoning effort?
We could start with that, yes, and then we can see if we can get more information from the residents of Midwood on.
okay. I guess one other thing, if I could, I would propose. I did like Glenn's idea about the community board having input. So I don't know if we could fold that into, in the end, like where we want to go here is if something is if everything's satisfied, at the end of the day, we still want to have a role, and not just allow this as of right.
Well, again, I don't mean to have a back and forth
Yeah.
about this, but what I'm thinking is that that can be a component that comes through that public review process. That's one of the details that would come from you, right? When you go through this public review process, you could say, any development that's gonna happen in, those that were subject to the 2009 rezoning must go through a BSA process. So I think that that's a detail that can be built in.
Okay.
Because that may or may not be something,
Understood. Thank you.
Anyway, I hope that motion was clear. Does it need to be restated?
Yes, it does, and we're. But yeah, restate the motion.
So, I motion that, we recommend to the full board that we disapprove, transit-oriented development, unless a meaningful public process, is instated for those that, in Victoria and Flatbush, and those that were subjected to the 2009 rezoning. We can.
And I'll second that. Third.
Okay.
Shall be next.
So let me read this out loud. And so the motion on the floor is to disapprove the transit-oriented development unless there is a meaningful process that involves the Victoria and Flatbush neighborhoods involved in the 2009 Flatbush rezoning. What do you do?
Unless the Victorian neighborhoods involved in the 2009 zoning are carved out and subject to the special permit process through BSA. No.
Well, the question of process, I think, is to Joanne's point, is really the key to all of this, I think. Not only is it the contextual questions, on individual lots, but then it'll be the question of process, because, we've also heard, I think, interest in, I think from everybody, trying to find ways to build more housing. So maybe there is another process, not ULURP, which is obviously the most onerous, and certainly maybe not as of right, but something may be in between, and it may not be necessarily the special permit process.
Okay, so I'm sorry if I added, maybe Carl stated it.
Everybody understands the question.
Okay, so board members clear on the motion that is being voted on right now? Yes. Okay, so all those in favor, please raise your hands.
We're counting, so give them up.
I have 17.
Sorry. Okay. And then, all those opposed, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? Any board members ineligible to vote? Okay.
As a point of question, I noticed in our economic opportunity one that we had given a minority report, which I believe was only one person's opinions within the discussions. And I was wondering if, when we disapprove of things, if there are rooms for comments explaining why people did not, adding in such a thing, given that precedent.
That would happen at the ratification process.
Yes, yeah, we could do that at the full board meeting.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much for that. And so we have our motion, and so the motion of disapproving, unless there is a meaningful process to engage with Victoria and Flatbush that was involved in the 2000 Flatbush rezoning. So that motion was approved. All right, by a vote of 17. So now we are on to accessory dwelling units. And so we are allotting 10 minutes to discuss these.
Alrighty, item number 2, accessory dwelling units in low density area. We have 10 minutes. A permit as of right accessory dwelling units, such as detached backyard residential units, garage conversions and basement apartments, all up to 800 square feet. DCP, can you clarify what is the maximum height for those ADUs? Is it, did I see 25 feet?
I believe it's 2 stories. 2 stories.
In feet, that is 25 feet. And then just so we have a better understanding, there's a 5-foot side yard or distance from the nearest home.
No, but it's all right.
That's right, the underlying zone. Let me double check.
Sure. Just so that the board members have a real life visual on that.
I think I read that it's 5 for new construction, not for conversions.
I think we're conflating it with district mixes.
Okay. Slowly.
And so are there any comments or questions from board members? So we'll start with board member Cohen and then board member.
I appreciate the creativity in terms of trying to find other ways to provide areas to live and where they might ordinarily be discouraged. The one thing I would definitely want to carve out though, with regard to basement apartments, is we know there's flooding issues in regards to certainly some significant portions of the community district. So I certainly would not want to approve something that encourages people moving into basement apartments that then consistently get flooded. I think that's kind of a destructive process. So I think if we were to approve this with conditions, I would definitely want a condition being like, if there's at a certain frequency of flooding or level of flooding, no, basement apartments are not being legalized there. Thank you.
If I may just ask for a point of information from DCP on this, because I know basement apartments are largely driven by the multiple residence law, in terms of whether or not they're allowed or not. We're waiting for state direction on that. Do you have information on the latest information on that regarding basement apartments?
So the state has designated several districts in the city.
Speak louder.
Yeah. The state has designated several districts in the city as pilot zones for the legalization of existing illegal basement apartments. This proposal, legalization of existing illegal basement apartments can only be done at the state level. This proposal would not do that. This district is not one of the districts that was chosen for the pilot project. I think East New York in Brooklyn is the only district in Brooklyn that's chosen. So is that
Well, so for now, for our purposes, are basement apartments eligible as part of this city?
Yes, so the ADU proposal would allow you to build new basement apartments, like new basement ADUs, provided the house is not in the flood zone. Legalization of existing basement apartments would not be permissible for this, but you could build new ones as long as they're up to code.
All right, thank you.
And to answer a previous question, 5 feet from the lot line is the minimum. 10 feet between detached ADUs and other buildings. Limited to 2 stories, 25 feet.
Thank you.
Board member Denise?
I also share the flooding concerns and I understand that it's outside of a flood prone area. I just think we should still include it as a condition, knowing that is something really strongly affects our area. I just want to note that I also really appreciate this as, especially if as a board we're, less interested in transit-oriented development. This seems like a very good way to allow for additional homes without changing any of the real fabric of, the built environment of the neighborhood. So I would urge folks to support it. And I guess just the one quick question I had is, I know there's a distinction between a basement and a cellar, where a basement is at least half above grade versus a cellar being half below grade. Does this potentially allow for cellars as well, or is it just strictly basements? Just because that's not like, that's kind of jargony, but I wanted to.
Let me check and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so board member Brown?
I'm not like soliciting, because we really didn't get a lot of feedback from ADU. I have 3 ticks about ADUs from this room tonight. Is it the height that is proposed of the EDUs that troubles people in the room? And you can just show me by a show of hands. It is the height. And would you say a 1-story ADU would make more sense? No, okay. Just looking around the room a little bit, okay. Because
Survey the room and see who's against ADUs? I mean, if no one spoke about it, maybe no one's against it. We're spoken about.
I heard your testimony. I heard 1 for, and I saw another person who said no. So can you just, if you're against the ADUs, can you just raise your hand for me so I get a sense? Okay. Okay, thank you.
But if you're for, just
Yeah, I don't.
so you did it down.
And if you're for? And okay, I see it's a lot of neutrality, so it's like even. Okay. I just wanted to, and I'm just following that up, that it's a height, in some cases, it's a height thing.
Right.
I know in other areas of the country, when you try to put a 2-story on an area that you really can't have it, that they dig down, you can dig down about 6 feet, and then you lose the 6 feet from the top. Is that something, I mean, that's a buildings question, right? That's not you create a massive retaining wall.
Right, I think that's a good question.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Board member Hitachi.
Sure. So I saw Glenn Mullen first, so let's do Glenn and then let's start.
I generally like the idea of ADUs, but my concern is, again, no process. As a general statement, they seem to be a pretty good idea. But as a specific, when we do public hearings about a specific house or land use issue, everyone within 400 feet has to be notified. Now, if you happen to live next door to something that's about to go up and it happens to be south of you and you're about to be in shadow, you might be opposed to it. Whereas right now, we're talking in general. So to me, it's a good idea, provided we have the process to allow people to come in a public hearing, and we get a sense of whether or not it's a good idea in that particular location or not. So my proposal is the same. It's about process. This should not be as of right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also have board member talk.
I don't know if this is something our friends from DCP can answer. Would these ADUs all be subject to short-term rental laws? If something's detached, does that count still, or I'm not an expert on that, but it's something that came into mind when I read through this. Short-term rentals.
Airbnb.
But like, as in, like, would you be prohibited from renting out on Airbnb?
Correct.
I believe the short-term rental law at this point covers all. Okay, the short-term rental law at this point, I believe, covers all housing in the city. It doesn't distinguish by housing. So I don't see any reason why those would not apply to the should be.
So do we have any additional questions from board members? So I see one from Greg Alvarez, and then we have about maybe a minute after.
All right, I'll be very quick. I just want to piggyback on Glenn's comment in terms of process. I think there is opportunity for that, for sure. In terms of what that could look like, I mean, I think everyone seems to be generally supportive of it, but it'd be nice to at least understand when these sorts of proposals come into the neighborhood. To me, it seems like there is that middle ground for some type of process, either it be, referral to community board, but it's still a DOV matter, and we would still be able to weigh in and collaborate with the DOV process that would help that, and that would supersede any sort of planning or BSA approval that would certainly short circuit the timing, but again, allow for some sort of process. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Sort of like landmarks.
Yeah. Gotcha. And
I have like two super quick comments. One, just wanted to note that this is a great way to help people who are struggling to keep up with costs in older homes that are larger by allowing, and that will help people stay in their homes by allowing them to have a income stream where they can't currently. I would also suggest maybe we can have like a notification process or something instead of a full approval. Just thinking about how many single family homes are in our neighborhood that would be to this, you know, we could get flooded with 30 plus of these a month and do nothing else as a board. And I'm not sure that that's the most judicious use of our time.
Thank you very much for that.
So I think a possible motion would be to approve, but with a community review process of some that is not as detailed as VSA.
I'll throw something out. Can I throw something out?
Yeah.
So I would say yes with two conditions. One, to address the flooding. If an owner wants to open up a basement apartment to housing, there would have to be, as part of the submission, like there was no flooding incident in the basement within the last 4 years, and then they could do it as of right. The second condition would be, to the extent the ADU is going to be more than 1 story, then that would come through a community board process, approval process.
I would second that.
Yeah.
If I'm correct, right now, the side yard requirement is 8 feet, and they want to reduce it to 5 feet, and the backyard requirement is 30 feet, and they want to reduce it to 20 feet. So it isn't only about height. Okay, but if somebody's going to do an ADU, it isn't only about a height restriction. If you live north of somebody who's going to be able to build back another 10 feet, whether it's 1 or 2 stories, you're now in shadow. And it might be a good idea to have a process that allows for input about any of these before they happen. I'm not saying they shouldn't happen. I like the idea. We have a lot of illegal apartments now. I love the idea of making them legal. It makes them safer. But there should be a process. This, as of right, is just not a good idea. I'm done.
Well, we have 2 possibilities for a motion. So we can informally pose a poll to see which one to go with and vote on that, whether it be any ADU or an ADU greater than 1 story, which was the original proposal.
Yeah.
With the basements. And then the basements will be part of both of those. Is amongst board members present, is there any particular, would you like to see all ADUs or ADUs greater than 1 story? Just looking for a motion to put on the table.
All ADUs will be under agri, right?
No, that would go through some kind of process, community process, but not as severe as the Board of Standards and Appeals. That's super expensive.
Well, what if we not just made it 2 stories, but also changing the dimensions? So in other words, if you're going from 30 feet to 20 feet, that's just as onerous as going from 1 story to 2 stories.
Well, I worry being too prescriptive in a condition. We should be a little bit more general. We should say any ADU or like, you know, or just be kind of like, be less prescriptive, I think. You know? Because
Most ADUs probably will
go all the way.
probably
For
go
800 square feet.
It sounds like all.
That's what you're feeling.
Okay, so should we pull?
Would you mind if we started with all ADUs or just ADUs?
Well, I
Okay.
defer to you. Yeah.
So, yeah, so I'll raise the motion as stated by Board Member Cohen about the basements last 4 years. And all ADUs come before some kind of community process.
But approved with those conditions. Is that the?
Yes, approve with those conditions.
And then the second motion would be, if this were to fail, only ones that would go above 1 story, correct?
Yeah, if this motion failed, we can bring the other one in, yes. So if somebody is seconding.
I second.
Okay, so all those in favor of, go first. So all board members are clear of the motion that we're voting on, right? Okay,
Yes.
excellent. And so all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand.
Okay, 13 is what I have.
13.
What I have.
And then all those opposed?
I see.
Six. Oh, yeah.
I see the hand I didn't see. It was six.
Yeah.
But it's 19-1.
Any abstentions? Anyone ineligible to vote? Okay, so what this means is that the motion to approve the accessory dwelling units with two conditions. One, addressing if there's been any flooding in the past 4 years, and then also every ADU comes before some sort of community process. That motion carries. So now we are up.
Sort of an interim question here. So we now have one disapproval and one approval.
Yes.
When Sean sent me a link to the DCP site where they tabulate what the result was from each community board. This is a quick heads up, as I saw only like 23, so fewer than half of the community boards have even calendared a discussion of City of Yes for housing opportunity. No.
I don't think that was housing opportunity. There's only three boards have weighed in on housing opportunity.
That was the three that all said no, right?
It was two in the Bronx.
I'm sorry, what is your question? It's maybe not.
My question is, the DCP site shows like a thumbs down, disapproval on.
No, DCP, you will consider the worksheet, right? If there's an overarching, mixed responses to each of the thingies. This is our worksheet, and you'll consider them one by one, right? Okay.
That's my question, is how does.
We're not going to respond to this as a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
My question is, what's DCP going to put on their site for us?
They're gonna,
If we have more.
They're gonna upload our worksheet that's like they did for housing. City of Yes for economic opportunity was a mixed bag on our, you know, some things were with conditions. So we have a cover letter and then we uploaded the worksheet. So that's what we'll do for this one too.
Okay.
Okay. And so the next item up for conversation is district fixes. And we have a 10-minute window for us to have this conversation.
All right, so this is an adjustment of various things, I'd say, to allow expansions of residences primarily, yes. For our purposes, the primary change that would be covered under this umbrella is old section 73-622, which was a special permit process primarily in the southerly portion of our district that allows expansions up to a certain FAR, and it's done by a special permit process through the BSA. So under the City of Yes requirements, that requirement would be removed, and it would become an as of right application to the DOB up to the 1.0 FAR that has typically been accepted by this board as the limit for those types of expansions. So that's the primary fix that is being sought, at least in terms of our district.
You might want to tell everyone may not know what FAR is.
So FAR is floor area ratio. It's a measure of the actual size of the lot versus how much space that is actually created by the building that is on the lots. So for instance, if you are on a 10 by 100 lots, that's 1,000 square feet. I'm sorry.
Nobody's on it.
For 2 hours.
50 by 100 to 5,000 square foot lots. If you were to have a 5,000 square foot home on that lot, it could be a full, so for instance, if it fully covered that lot, or if you had a 2-story house that had, say, 2,500 square feet on the first story and then 2,500 square feet on the second story, that also would be 5,000 square feet. And so it's a ratio based on those two numbers. And so that would be one FAR. If you had, for instance, a 2,500 square foot house on that lot, on that 5,000 square foot lot, it would be 0.5 FAR. So that's the measure. So the 1.0 FAR is what's permitted in our southerly portion of our district in most, on most lots. And so that requirement to come before the BSA and to come before this board would be removed.
Thank you for the explanation. And so, board members, are there any?
Well, I'd just like some clarifications here, just to make sure I understand it. Right now, the 3X that most of the Victorian houses are is at a 0.6. So would this mean that it would go up to between a 0.7 and a 0.85? Is that what this is saying here?
For the DCP on that? Yeah. According to the chart I have, it will go up to 1, but like.
Louder, it goes.
Then what is this written here then?
So yeah, so these requirements would also apply to other districts within the city as well, within our district. So it would allow adjustments to be made to accommodate more space within the home for growing families and other needs that residents may have.
If I can add, it also allows non-conforming homes that were built early on and then multiple zoning changes had made them non-conforming. When you have a non-conforming home and you want to make alterations, it becomes very, very difficult for the homeowner. They have to fix everything wrong with it until they can come into compliance. So that's why it's called the district fix.
Okay, I'd like to point out that during the negotiations with the community about the 2009 zoning, ECP first came up with the 4X, which was a 0.9 FAR, and the community said absolutely not, because it meant that a large percentage of homes could expand, just get bigger. So it was settled on a 0.6. So for this to say we're going up to a 1.0 totally trashes the whole thing that happened in 2009, where we agreed on a 0.6.
Yes.
I misspoke earlier. For the R3X zone, the FAR would go up 0.6 to 0.75. The allowable height, the base height would go from 21 feet to 25 feet, and the maximum height would stay at 35 feet.
0.75.
Correct.
Board member Denise?
I was just gonna ask about the maximum height. It sounds like this would, this is a great way to get things into compliance and not to change the overall look or feel with height and other concerns that have been raised.
You mentioned rear yard changes.
It says 30 to 20.
Yeah, so one of the changes that's also listed here within the requirement is that rear yard 25-foot wait, am I reading the wrong one here?
On item 30.
Yeah, no. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. So it reduces the rear yard requirement from 30 to 20 feet. So that's one of the fixes as well that allows for these expansions to occur.
Board member Cole?
Want to get clarification on the side yard reduction. It says 2 5 feet. I just wanted to make sure I know from what, and relatedly, just for frame of reference, was curious if anyone could enlighten me as to, with regard to these proposals that come to us from our Midwood neighbors frequently, like have we approved of proposals that have side yard requirements as low as 5 feet? I just wasn't sure off the top of my head.
Yep.
Okay. And it's going down to 5 feet from what?
And it, the most we've done is like 0.99. If I remember correctly, it was like the most recent one, it was 0.99.
We've gone over.
No, we've.
Oh, you have, okay.
Side yard.
Yeah, 1.01.
Yeah, we were not happy with anything over 1.02 right now.
Okay.
Yeah, the 0.75, I don't have a problem. 30 to 20 foot, I think.
So do I see any additional conversation or comments from board members?
You have a question though, another clarification question, but does this only apply to the existing homes right now, or does that apply to new developments that will be within the area as well?
it would be new developments as well and existing homes. It's a district fix. So it would bring all of those homes into compliance that exist and then allow new construction to follow this zoning.
So ideally, the new construction that will come in would basically be smaller than what you're doing now.
Larger.
Larger.
Smaller side yard, smaller rear yard, more FAR and maximum height 35 feet.
So just one, if I may, one scenario is somebody could build, if they had more floor area ratio to capture, because they could build a larger house, they could extend it just straight back. If they had a 30-foot rear yard, they could just extend it back 10 feet to get to a 20-foot rear yard. That's how they could have the FAR.
Maybe wider. But they have right now an 8-foot side yard, they can literally make that extension wider down to a 5-foot side yard.
Just scenarios we've had in the special permit district. So I'm just using that as an example.
So just one follow-up, because the 5 feet side yard thing is clearly bothering me to some degree. But the, has anyone like just consulted with the FDNY, whether like they're comfortable with like in the situation of a 5 feet side yard, like would that inhibit their operations if they're trying to do a rescue from the side of the house, if that's enough space for them? Like, do we know?
What house?
I think FDNY was consulted.
Yeah, FDNY has been consulted throughout this process, and every proposal aligns with building code.
Great.
So, they have not raised any red flags.
So, actually, to Greg's point, if I read him correctly, special permits that we review on a regular basis would now be superfluous and would all be as of right, correct?
Unless they ask for anything beyond the.
Yeah, right, beyond what is allowed. And this speaks, I think, to a larger point, which is I see the whole city of Yes proposals as sort of an equivalent of deregulation. What little power community boards have and communities themselves have seems now to be devolved back to central government, city government. And, I spent 10 years in CB3 Manhattan, and you still get this feeling that they're nibbling away at the community board's ability to represent what we feel is best for our neighborhood, which is what, brought about the 2009 zoning. So I don't know if at some point at the end, you're going to ask for general comments like this, but I thought I would get it in case you weren't.
You're good, that was fast.
I just want to note that, in my time, and I did a little bit of research, I haven't seen anything, and I could be wrong, that we had as a BSA permit that would have fit under this that we've denied. Am I correct on that? Thinking a little bit about how, community board members' time is, if we're going to be starting to hear all these things, every ADU, if we're going to be hearing these additional neighborhood processes for Victorian Flatbush, if we're just approving these anyway, it seems like this is a sensible thing to allow by right, to give us more options, zoning these. Sorry?
We have denied them in the past.
But ones that have fit under this qualification, which is
Special
stricter,
permits.
but this is stricter than the current special permits. We allow often far up to 1, this would allow 0.75 in some areas.
I'll defer to Greg.
You mean in terms of the FAR that it's.
My understanding is that this is about the section 73,
Yes.
but also that, this is not quite as permissive as section 73. This is a little less permissive. And that we.
I'm not positive on that.
But I guess just thinking, how process is great, except when process means that we literally cannot get through everything. And so at some point, I would just note that this seems like a very small change compared to the previous 2 things we have discussed, which we have asked for more process for. So just, trying to weigh in the idea that perhaps this is a good place to let go of process.
I gotcha. Yeah, if I may defer to DCP on this, just real quick. Basically, for any application that would proceed, in this manner that exceeds any of these bulk requirements or area requirements, those would still need BSA approval. Is that correct?
Yeah, if someone is asking for a variance, if these changes are made and then someone wants to build something that is not in compliance with the new district fixes, whether they ask for a variance or a zoning map amendment or whatever relief they want, it would go through the standard process that they currently have.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Just a quick question for GTP. Combining of tax lots. So now we have 2.0 FAR. No.
Yeah.
Combining of tax lots is still a BSA.
No.
2.7, go ahead.
It doesn't, combining of tax lots doesn't change the underlying, it doesn't change the, like, you can't take 0.75 FAR on one lot and 0.75 FAR on the adjacent lot and then combine the lots and add them together, right? It's the same FAR remains in effect in that zoning district regardless of the lot.
Oh, you just have a bigger yard or something.
Well, you'd have a bigger house. You have a bigger lot.
Much bigger house.
You can build twice as much floor area because you can double the size.
That's my point.
But it's not 1.5 FAR.
You need that more floor area instead of.
Oh, yeah, okay, I got the ratio is the same. Okay, because we did have discussions in preliminary talks about like within the combining tax lots, that would be a condition where we would ask for BSA approval. That would be a special permit.
Sure, yeah, and that's it's that.
So, sorry for that. I just want to bring that to the rest of you that there is a possibility here that if, especially in the special permit district, which will no longer be, that we might want to consider a condition where they're, when they are combining a tax lot, that would still be a special permit. So that,
Or still require public review.
So
Right,
also
so we're-
consideration
yes,
of, these, because it would be a much larger.
Yeah.
right. What he said.
So I see District Manager Kimball.
And we do have a timekeeper, right?
Yeah.
The question I have is because the EIS was not, didn't make any conditions at the district level, was there still a citywide consideration of the negation of permeable land in the area? If we're building out everybody's rear yard to 20 feet instead of 30 feet, we have that much less permeable area on these lots. Is that something that's considered in the environmental impact statement?
It is. It was not found to have any, I don't think it was found to have, I think in order for changes in permeability to have significant adverse environmental impacts, it would have to happen like on such a huge citywide scale on so many lots in a way that we don't expect in this proposal. Like, we do not expect the ADU proposal to trigger rear yard reductions at a scale that would cause a significant environmental impact of the kind that would need to be addressed, that would show up in the balance.
Even at, but that wasn't considered at a district level in a flood prone location where it might have, like you're thinking citywide and incrementally, but hyper locally, that wasn't part of your analysis?
I don't think the EIS like proceeds on a district by district basis.
Okay.
So I'll take.
Thanks,
one-
thank you.
Thank you. So I'll take one more from Board Member Woolman and then ask the group for a motion.
Just so people are aware, when DCP came up with the idea of 4X in 2009, it was because most of the housing stock, that got them 70 to 80% in compliance. So the 0.75 is not really a problem. All right. Now more of the housing would be in compliance, doesn't leave much room for expansion. But the 30 to 20 foot rear yard does make a difference to people who live in the immediate area. And in our general area, we have a serious flooding problem now with it rains. So you may say it's not going to make a difference, but it will. Now, just how much of a difference it would make to take away that 10 by 30 or 40 foot permeable space means that much more rainwater out into the streets that can't handle it now. That's not a good thing. That's the one thing I have an objection to here is this rear yard reduction. There's a lot of pieces to this that you're not considering that are not good for the neighborhood. We had Cortelyou Road where water went from basement to basement across the road in a heavy rainstorm. And now you're saying it's okay to add a little more water. It's only a little. It's okay. It's only a little. I'm done, sorry.
So what's the?
I have a motion.
Okay, so what's the motion?
Yeah, my motion would be to approve with the condition that we allow for, that we ask that there are increases in permeable paving that are made alongside this as well as, or other, just, I don't have the right wording for this, but something that asks that when people take advantage of this, they have more options for permeable paving and for other ways to retain water, so that they can do this, but also will not impact flooding.
Is that something that can be put in zoning? Can you put in the zoning text amendment that the 5-foot side yard has to have permeable?
I don't know if that is the.
Because we can't ask for a condition that is not a zoning text amendment.
It could be something that we ask city council to consider as another law. Or as color, like as something we would like.
Yeah, I mean, could it be like a footprint set off, like if you're putting in, you know, for whatever footprint you're adding in, that you have to replace that with non-permeable pavers or some other way to adjust for potential flooding issues. Well, okay, wait. Let me ask you this. DOB, would that be part of their review? Is any sort of drainage requirements for these sorts of additions? Would that be?
That generally qualify for their jurisdiction, yes.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, we've had plenty of experience with asking for other agencies to make an adjustment because a zoning text amendment has made an adjustment. And we're relying on another agency to make an adjustment, whereas we should be focused on what we are doing right now with the zoning text amendment and not relying on another agency to do that.
And just to give color, my thing is that I think that this is a good idea and that we can adjust, that there are easy fixes to adjust for this that would allow for us to help people with their expanding families or help people to, you know, take a two-family building or so forth and making it a larger, you know, two-family building by a very small amount. And that, you know, we are noting this as an issue. You know, if you disagree that needs to happen first, perhaps you would vote this motion down, but I think that, I don't know, I have an optimism for that.
Gotcha. So we have a motion. Are you proposing or?
I was gonna throw out that we could make a restriction that for properties in the flood zone, they not be permitted to go below 30 feet rear yard or whatever the side yard current requirement is. What?
We're not in the flood zone.
Oh.
The flooding that happens in this district is not considered flood zone flooding.
Could we make our own pseudo flood zone based on our knowledge of where the flooding occurs?
That's the beauty of the.
It's all like coastal flooding.
There is a motion on the floor, point of order.
Yeah. So, Board Member Denise, so could you restate your motion?
My motion was that we approve this and ask that there are additional follow-up from other agencies to create more reps towards permeable surfaces for these homes and or other ways to retain water so that the sewer system is not overwhelmed.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And so does anyone second that motion? Okay, we have a second.
Are we, if this is the vote, just point of order, should we also consider the inclusion of the lot combination question that we were talking
Oh,
about?
that's friendly.
That could be a follow-up motion.
Okay.
It could also be.
That's a friendly amendment to the conditions.
Great.
Okay, great. And so let's take the vote. And so all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand.
Ten.
11. I got 11.
One more time, let's do that one more time.
Add one to all of my counts.
Somebody with the other hands up.
Somebody is invisible to me.
So we're doing it again.
Yes, please.
I got 11.
Thank you.
Okay, and then all those opposed, please raise your hands. All right. Okay, so any abstentions? All right. Anyone ineligible? Okay, so the motion carries. Good numbers. Yes, so we had 11 in favor, we had 6 opposed, we had 2 abstentions, and we had no one ineligible. 8% to go.
I didn't find the wrong number, but it's, you know, I'm stealing the capability right now.
Make it shorter. I want to make it shorter.
That's true.
Centers.
Didn't, weight it properly.
You gotta wait it.
So folks, the next item up is town center zoning, and we have 10 minutes for this item.
Town center zoning in low density category allow mixed use buildings on commercial streets in low density areas such that 2 to 4 stories of residential units could be added to commercial ground floor buildings. Will there be any discussion amongst board members?
First, I have a question. What determines who will be a more stories? Who determines
The underlying zoning district.
which is?
Whether the number of extra stories you get depends on the underlying zoning.
Whether you're a C2, well, you can look at the zoning map plan. It's, you know, most of our commercial districts are C4.
Okay, and C4 means what?
Second. This is where it would be affected.
Okay, what is the zone, because I can look at the map later, but I want to know C4, C2, 3, or 4.
I'm looking.
Okay.
And while he's looking, do you want to go? There was another question from a board member.
My concern with this town center zoning is the economical impact it will have on the businesses that will be that occupy the spaces. And if the people who are the owners of the buildings make the decision to build on top, do the owners have a say? Can they oppose? Can they not oppose? How long would it be closed? Like the long-term, you know, impact that it will have on the businesses will seem to adversely affect what's going on. So that's just my little input on that.
Yeah, we understand, that's something that a lot of people have pointed out. What happens in a commercial establishment between an owner and a commercial tenant is a private transaction. And it's currently not regulated by law. Like, what happens on that lot is currently not regulated by law.
So basically the owner can say, well, I don't care, I just want to add whatever you decide to do. That's basically.
Sure, I mean, they can do that now as well, but it's private transaction.
If a business has a lease, and they usually try to get a 10-year lease when they sell it. And if they have an active lease, then the owner can't just negate that. They have to negotiate with them if they want to put them out for some reason. So they have to compensate, or they have to wait until the lease is up.
One condition I'd like board members to consider is how hard we worked on the fresh incentive in 2021 to ensure that our single-story tax lot grocery stores and supermarkets remained in our community. We have many of them in District 14. So in our decision-making, I'd like to just put in a condition that the fresh incentive for Community Board 14 be preserved, even though I know it's not being changed in this. I just want to make it said that it is very important our grocery stores remain.
Find out, C4.
So there's no C4 zoning.
I'm sorry.
There's no C4 zoning in this community district. The question is possible. There's no C4 zoning in this.
So what zoning is it that allows 2 floors above, and what zoning allows 3 floors? And we can look at the map and see.
Right, so up to R3X, the maximum height would be 35 feet. R4 and R5 districts would mostly allow for 40 feet.
Thank you. So I see board member Denise and then board member Cohen.
I know this isn't exactly in our district, but I'm thinking a lot when I hear about this, about Coney Island Avenue and how our side of the district, there's a lot of housing that's allowed substantially above 2 to 4 feet, 2 to 4 floors. And then on the other side in CB12's area, just across the street, there are very, there's lots of buildings that do not allow for any housing. So, knowing that this is a citywide amendment, I think that it is very sensible and specifically does affect our district because we would like, it doesn't really make sense that we would have, even though it's not on our blocks, it doesn't really make sense to have this on one side of the street, but not the other. And, if anyone is concerned about, perhaps a more equitable way to develop that street would be to develop it on both sides instead of only on our lot, on our side. So, just thinking about how, despite there being very limited pieces specifically in our district, I do think some of the neighboring district, zoning, would benefit a lot from this in ways that would then kind of, work with our district well.
Thank you. Board Member Cohen.
I was just curious if we've gotten any comments on this from any of the local bids or even FDC, because I hear the micro concern about like, it could cause businesses to shut down for a certain period of time while construction is going on. Excuse me. But at the same time, I've got to imagine a lot of businesses would love that having 3 stories of residential units above them and potential new customers and opening up that avenue. So I'm just curious if we've gotten any input from the businesses themselves.
We haven't heard from the bids on this or FDC. I don't know if you've opined on it at all. There has been some of the letters from the neighborhood associations in support of it. It was like the one thing that could be saved from the perspective of, say, West.
Well, I would say that a good percentage of this was also covered in the upzoning during that time, that the commercial corridor were upzoned to allow for potential housing and potential, exactly what we see here, right? So I mean, us, I think we would firmly back it as an organization.
I think we should just approve this.
I like the fresh condition.
Sure.
Motion to approve, subject to the fresh advisory.
Is that a condition or a comment?
Yes, the comment. You can't make a condition.
Comment, yeah.
Any comments, yeah. I'll amend that.
No, my condition is that the fresh incentive is preserved in the zoning text amendment.
Because that was also a zoning text.
It was a zoning text amendment. So what I'm saying is don't mess with fresh zoning text amendment.
They're messing with all of it.
Yeah, so that's the condition that I recommend. Don't mess with it.
I'll second that.
Okay. So all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands.
So like it's 16 or 17?
Oh, yeah. It passes. And then, yeah, we do. All those opposed? Okay, so we have 2. And then any abstentions? You have 1. Any ineligible? Okay, thank you. And so what that means is the motion carries with 16 in favor, 2 opposed, and 1 abstention. Okay.
Oh, just in terms of process.
Yes.
This is the 5th item. It's 9 o'clock and we've talked about, this is the one that we thought, also most relevant to the district. The other ones quasi relevant. So I don't know if you want to opine now on what we're going to do with the rest of it, see where we are when we get through this one.
I think we should definitely do we should definitely do this one. And then after that, yeah.
Then we'll have a discussion about what to do the rest.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Square biz.
So let me write this down. Okay, so the next item for discussion is lift costly parking mandates. We will allot 15 minutes for this item. You got excited.
You must have a lot to say.
I have a lot to say. And so.
That's pretty general in nature, so.
Exactly. And so we will begin the conversation and I see, Board Member Denise.
I support this. Parking increases the cost of housing by up to 17%, according to a study in New York City. I would also just note that in our district, when people have built projects, they have tended to exceed minimums. So I expect that would continue if they believe that parking is warranted. This, as just a reminder, does not mean no parking can get built. I had one other very quick, and one other thing I was just gonna note is that I remember someone had mentioned at our full board meeting, something about trying to have parking go against FAR, and I was curious what that was intending, knowing that the multiple dwellings law at the state level prohibits that.
I'm sorry.
Prohibits counting FAR against housing, or counting parking against housing FAR, FAR.
Whether or not it counts or not.
You're not allowed to have any provision within zoning that would allow, that would have whatever space is taking up by parking counting against floor area ratio according to the multiple dwelling law.
I
I just didn't understand the idea you had, I think.
Well, when it's my turn to speak, I'll speak on it.
Yeah, so I see we got board member Cohen.
Yeah, I'll echo a lot of what Liz just said. I think a lot of times it feels like when there's new building proposals, there's a lot of concern among neighbors that there will be lots of two-car families moving in, and I don't think, at least from my observation, that's usually not the case. I think there is a generational kind of thing where, you know, younger people moving in are more apt to ride bikes or a lot of times, you know, at least for our area, a lot of times it's people moving from more dense neighborhoods to here, where they're, you know, used to walking or biking to get places, so they might not be coming with a car. So at least from my observational standpoint, the mandatory parking, at least as far as our district, is more than it needs to be. So, and I think, you know, given the costs and what could be done as an alternative, I think I think there's good logic behind this one. Thanks.
All right, board member Brown, and then Wolin, and then Minnick.
So what I said at our Housing and Land Use Committee meeting was that I am in favor of eliminating mandatory parking requirements for new businesses, for new buildings. But I also think it doesn't go far enough because you're still allowing you're still exempting that FAR from the total. Now, is it state law that parking needs to be exempt from the FAR of the building?
I don't know what the state law is. There's currently no proposal, like you said, we're not proposing to count parking against FAR. I don't know if that is because the state doesn't allow us to do it, but it's just not something we can consider.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that, and I'll use an example. There is a building around the corner from me that received about 30,000 square feet of, you know, sorry, it's late. 30,000 square feet, which was not counted towards the FAR. Now, according to DCP, that can't be public parking, but it is a fully licensed parking garage that was built with an exemption of FAR. So using that, and they charge $400 a month and they have 46 parking spaces. So it's very lucrative for them. They make $220,000 a year on that parking garage. So if you included the FAR, if you included the garage in the FAR, right, you are de-incentivizing creating parking for profit. So when I say we're not going far enough, to really go far enough to eliminate mandatory parking requirements and to remove cars from the road, then let's stop the giveaway of the FAR on these quiet conversions to public parking, because it's not just that building, there are other buildings that do it.
And so I believe you had something.
I'm trying to process.
Okay. So in that case, I know I have board member Minnick, and then I'll go to come back to you. And oh wait, okay, let me get the order right. So I got board member Minnick, then I got, oh, okay, fine. Then I got district manager Campbell. Yep.
Thank you. So I'm definitely in favor of this myself, and I can tell you it actually is that New York City mandates that off-street parking be built with any new housing that is built. That is something that currently is the way it is. So it's New York City, not New York State right now. And that's even if it's not needed, which is one of the reasons that we have so many parking garages and parking spots that are out there. But for myself, I'm, as I said, very much in favor of this. I think that for one thing, this ending of parking mandates actually would work and support the transit-oriented development very well. It just would work in sync very much with that. And I think that removing parking mandates actually, it would increase the affordable housing that we have for all of this as well. And I guess just one of the things I would also throw out there is that just any parking mandates, but also just lower the rent and the cost of housing, honestly, because it would actually just make it so that we could actually build affordable housing a lot faster.
There's nothing to do with affordable housing.
I mean, just having worked for affordable housing organizations and all that, I can tell you that actually finding places that everything comes together, having enough space, including the parking lots too, it can throw a lot more time and money in there too. And this I think would be fantastic. And on the flip side, as somebody who just lives in the community and doesn't drive, but we have a not the Victorian house side, on the Flatbush side. A lot of very big buildings and a lot of people with not as many parking spots up there. This I think would be fantastic.
Thank you, Board Member Nick. So I have District Manager Campbell, Board Member Woolen.
Just something that I've actually had the benefit of speaking to you about, and some of your colleagues, Honey, is the fact that while building beyond a certain number of, size kicks in a parking requirement, at about that same level, it also kicks in a different tax class. And the response was, well, we understand that there's other impediments to building, we just don't want zoning to be one of them. But I get frustrated with y'all sometimes when you're more like the Department of Silos than the Department of Planning, because planning requires some coordination with the other city agencies. So I would urge there to be, a condition or a statement of urging DC to continue to work with the other agencies, that if you're going to be removing impediments to things, you should be working with your fellow city workers and other agencies to make it real.
No, you'll hear no objection from me on that. We should continue to coordinate to remove that.
Right on.
Okay, thank you. So I have Board Member Woolen.
Well, I have a driveway, so obviously I don't have any problem parking, but I've been reading quite a bit in the past year or so about people who come home from work and drive around for 45 minutes to an hour and sleep in their cars because they can't find a place to park. Parking has gotten much more difficult. We've given up a lot of parking spaces to the city bike. We've given up a lot more parking spaces to the restaurants that can put out in the street.
Yes.
And now allowing for, one last comment is that there's a small category of buildings that is small apartment buildings, where the added expense for parking is a large enough percentage that it is a little bit of a disincentive. But when you get above that, it becomes a smaller and smaller piece of the total cost and is not a disincentive. But we're giving them a giveaway. They don't have to supply that, and it doesn't matter how many people are going to be driving around forever looking for a parking spot, because we're talking about something that's not just in Victoria and Flatbush. We're Community Board 14. We have a lot of other blocks here that don't have driveways. So I'm not so sure that this is, and one thing for sure is that this has nothing to do with affordable housing. This simply has to do with more housing. Affordable housing is something separate, which I'm very much for. Giving away to developers, less so.
Thank you. So Board Member Denise, just a heads up, I'm going to go to Board Member there and then Board Member Siegel and then.
I'd just like to echo your point, because a lot of the testimony that I heard tonight was from homeowners, and I am someone who lived in District 14, kind of teetering 17, in an apartment building, or I'm only 31. I'm one of the very few millennials in the room, since I came to this country, and I was 29 and a half years ago. And I have been one of the people who have come home late at night and had to have slept in a car in order to get a parking space. So I understand the need. However, to echo your point again, it's like, I believe that this is not a more housing situation, because if you were to take a trip down New York Avenue, Rogers Avenue, Flatbush Avenue, buildings are going up. But every banner you see, it's a luxury apartment. As I said, I've lived in this community for many years. thank God I was able to succeed into my apartment now, but I am unable to move anywhere in the state. I cannot live anywhere. If I were to lose my job tomorrow, I'm gonna be on the street with everybody else. So it's definitely not, and we need more. We need more apartments, but the affordability topic needs to definitely be zeroed in on because what people are deeming affordable is not affordable at all. And parking has nothing to do with it. Because there are buildings in my area that has come up and there are no parking spaces. And there are still $2,300 for a studio apartment. So we are bigger fish to fry as far as ending parking mandates when it comes to affordability. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing. So board member C.
Just, the notion that this is gonna be a disincentive for people who have cars is, it's just not correct. If it affects it, it's only at the margins. People that wanna have cars, have cars. And the more, and if you don't have parking, there are gonna be more people driving around, sleeping in their cars. That's really the problem here.
Board member Hatter, I see you had.
Yeah, I hear what some folks are saying about, you know, that marginally this is gonna make a difference, or a small difference in money, but I feel like this is making like perfection the enemy of better. Like this is an improvement. It can increase the number of units, increase it, which is a kind of one of the overarching goals of this project. And so I think if it does disincentivize big parking garages in these newer construction, that's in lieu of having more units, I think that's a positive. And, you know, the car problems on the street are gonna exist. It's gonna continue. It's gonna get worse as more people move in. So I think it's, you know, pick our battles. That's all.
So board member Denise, I apologize. We have about 2 minutes left, so I want to use this time to see what the consensus is. If
Can I just
consensus-
clarify what I meant by the state multiple dwelling law quickly? It's just in multiple dwelling law 26, section 26 of the state that you cannot include parking towards it. So if we wanted to limit how much parking could be built, we could not, we probably shouldn't ask for FAR because the state would preempt it, and we should instead ask for, say, a maximum or something.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
There's also a state
That's
level
what I had to say.
basement dwelling units too, and that's still moving forward.
Okay, gotcha. And so then with this conversation, do we have any motions or do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, so then the vote is for the motion, all those in favor, please raise your hands.
Just as a reminder, it's not gonna, no building is providing free parking.
So where's
2, 3, 4.
That's a big confused.
It's 13.
Not here to debate each other.
And then for all those against, please raise your hands. And then do I have any abstentions? Okay. And then any ineligible?
Because you are a car.
Oh, that got you.
You're getting funnier as the night goes on.
Second. Okay, so folks, it is 9:11 PM. And so first, I thank you all for your patience and your grace with this. What I want to call out to folks is that we basically got through 1, 2, 3%. We got through basically 5 of the things that we believe most affect Community District 14. I believe there's one other thing, which is the universal affordability preference, but then after that, not even really, right?
Yeah, it has little, it's the zones or the,
It's like medium size. I thought it was medium.
I'm sorry, yeah, there isn't that much land in our district that falls into the zone that this is applicable to.
A little bit. A little bit.
along Ocean Avenue a little bit, but it can also, either hear it now, hear it at the full board meeting.
Yeah, because basically, there's a lot of items left to cover and the remaining items, some of them may not be as Community District 14, relevant as the ones that we led with, but they would still have some sort of impact. And so we have a few options. One of them is we keep going down the list and we finish all the remaining ones. The second one is that we could do some sort of blanket statement where because we feel that we have tackled the first 5 items that are most relevant, that we would then say that we would be deferring to our fellow community boards for whom those remaining items are more relevant for their judgment. And then the third option would basically be that we call it a night. And then what would happen as chairperson is that at our upcoming community board meeting on Monday, the 17th, I would report on the motions that have been made. The board would vote on those motions, and then I would also make a motion to have a committee of the whole, which is an ad hoc committee. And then we would then meet, if that motion passed to have a committee of the whole, then any board members who came in, we would then discuss the remaining items and whatever motion, whatever decisions came out of that would basically be the board. So, yeah.
I may have skipped a beat in what you said, but there was also a conversation about potentially deferring to the other boards for whom this had more impact and not weighing in on those items. Did you say that? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
I have a question first, if I might.
Yes.
What is medium density? What is low end of medium density?
Department considers medium and high density to be R6 district, and R1 to R5 is low, it's considered low density. R6 is it's considered medium.
Aren't thinking about the board. I say two separate things. It's 20 Island Avenue in our district. Right now, it's mostly three-story built.
Here we go. Here's where it is.
So which is it? The only definition or the existing
With,
housing stuff?
with regard to door number 3, would you fellas come to our second meeting to?
As for coming out, no limit.
Okay. I think we could, I think the rest of us could probably bomb through at a not very lengthy meeting.
That would be a committee of the whole.
Right,
In a committee of the whole.
right. I think that's.
Okay, so I see we also have board member Assad, board member Denise.
To explain the timeline, how much time do we have to have the committee of the whole deliberate and vote in order to get it in?
Sure. So basically, the current timeline is that DCP is looking for community board feedback by 5/8.
Oh, sure, we have plenty of time.
And so, so that's.
Right.
And then, so I got District Manager Campbell and then board member Denise.
As far as what's going before the full board on Monday night, it's everything that's been discussed tonight with the conditions that were articulated and voted upon. But I also wonder if the board wants to consider sort of memorializing some of the comments that were made about process, and that has actually been our habit on all of the City of Yes proposals, which is to once again point out to City of Yes that the timing of certification, the amount of time we have, it's nowhere near 4 years, should maybe be in one of the objections we have to the process, if not the actual zoning text amendment itself. And in addition to that, I raised it and it's been raised by other boards. We didn't talk about it tonight, so maybe it's inappropriate for Monday night's meeting, but I'll put it out there anyway. There's a real concern about the level of analysis on the environmental impact statement, and to do a citywide analysis on things that are going to have very disparate impacts at a very local level seems like a hiccup in a process that just should have been better. And so those are the two things I would maybe want in the official, in the stuff that gets voted on Monday night, and that will go into the ZAP portal following ratification.
You raise that as a.
I can't think
motion
much,
that-
but I'm not opposed pointed to this board.
No, and one make, is that a motion we could consider?
Yeah, we can make a motion tonight that would add additional language to talk about the process and how, for the
process.
the 4th time it's been introduced where, the due date falls in the summer when we are at recess.
Yeah, I'm trying to have a good time. And and the idea of the expanded environmental impact. Okay. All right, so I'm in favor of that.
Okay, so then,
I'm not, although I do it for a living, speaking to you, I think you do it better in this regard.
I mean, there's a motion on the table. I can comment after a motion.
So the motion would be that additional language in our response to DCP.
As regards
Well,
process.
timing of the certification.
No, yeah, I was thinking about something else. We'll continue to point out the flaws in the process and how it disrupts community, public input, public and community board input, as well as an expanded EIS for community district 14. So that's the
Second.
motion.
already seconded. Got it. So all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Yeah, me too.
Campbell amendment. Come on, you can smile. This is going pretty well.
18.
Okay. Got it. And then all those opposed? All right. So I got one. And then do I have any abstentions?
No, because that's all everyone.
I know, I'm just kidding.
Oh, good for you.
Hey, I'm just saying,
Anyone ineligible?
if an ineligible popped up, then I'd be confused. I'd like to know.
So let's have a vote on door number 3.
So yeah, so we got, what are we doing?
You could also do that at the Monday meeting.
Yeah, and then quick thing before I do that, yeah, so let me get a comment from board member Denise, and then yes, I'll put a motion for that.
I just want to both log that in the future, we should consider having a multiple sessions for something like this. I will note that part of the reason I voted against this motion was that DCP had kind of fielded these ideas. They started fielding it multiple years ago. I had gone to many different DCP sessions and watched them on YouTube starting very early this year and had gotten a very good understanding of it before the text amendment was out and got to read the text amendment then as well. And I understand that is, outside of our official board duties, but I think that we could incorporate that better so that we are maybe more prepared in the future to handle things like this. And including potentially if we also had multiple sessions to talk about these things, so that we wouldn't be having to defer or so forth. There would also be more opportunities for the public to come in and speak to different points. And perhaps if they had, maybe they didn't in their 2 minutes get to talk about one section of something that they actually felt pretty strongly about. Just noting that could maybe help our engagement. But I just want to note that I am in favor of whatever it is that we continue to discuss this, because I do think, our board has tended to defer to other boards on what they would like for their areas, but noting that if other boards do not also create housing, that pressure does fall more onto the boards that do. And so I would just note that I would like to opine on that, because I think it's important to solve the citywide crisis with citywide comments, even if, some of those are saying, yes, other areas which haven't built as much as us, please build more.
Sure, no problem. So thank you for that. So a few things. So the first thing is that we did have 2 housing and land use committee meetings with DCP on this. And so we had one on March 31st and we had another one on May 8th. And then the second piece too as well is that in planning for today's public hearing, there was a trade-off that was made. And so in conversations with the Housing and Land Use Committee co-chairs and the district manager, there were 2 things in terms of timing, and then I made a judgment call. And so option 1 was that we were going to have public testimony for every single item. And so it was going to be for those people who had testimony on transit-oriented development or town fixes, district fixes or not. That would be the moment where the person spoke, as opposed to having everyone's testimony. And so the flip side of that one is that you would have much more public engagement and the public would feel much more engaged. The downside of that is if you had a situation like transit-oriented where there were so many people who spoke about that, we would have capped the number of speakers at 10. We would have hit the 20 minutes and then would have had to come to a decision without having board input. And so there was that decision. Option 2 was having all the public testimony up front, which is that, yes, that went much further, right? Because you had more people. And then I understand for the public that is tough because you're sitting here hearing all of us talk, but then the flip side of that is, okay, we've had everyone have their chance to speak and we've heard their comments. And now that we've done that, we as board members are able to incorporate
Yeah,
all of those things. So that was the reason. So I bring that up just because I hear what you're saying in terms of, you know, the things that you wish had happened and we're looking for in terms of process. What I'm hoping you understand is that there were multiple times where we did meet, like, is it perfect? No, right? Like an example of the Cambridge thing is that Cambridge, Massachusetts had 4 years at the Brooklyn Borough Hall meeting. The chairs of the committee board are saying the same things, right? I mean, the truth of the matter is that we are fortunate that we have people in Community Board 14 and Community District 14 who care about the community and are passionate about land, and we're able to carve out time. There are 59 community boards across the city, and so I cannot assume that 58 community boards have people. It's not that people aren't passionate, but it's that, are you passionate? Do you have the knowledge and do you have the time? And do you happen to know someone and be in this room at that time?
Yeah, I guess
right?
my comment is more just could we have, you know, maybe had public testimony one day and then had our discussion another day, or just anything that would have given us more time, because clearly the, you know, approximately 3 hours we have now was not sufficient for this. I don't know if it's the best way to have it, you know, people opine on one thing or another. I would like to give people more options of times they could come, not that if they had things on multiple times, they have to come to multiple meetings.
Understood.
but
Well, you know, the world
Just
is.
for idea for the future.
Understood. You know, so we do the best with what we have.
Make the motion to adjourn this meeting?
Well, we have one more.
We have one more item though, right? And so we just have one more item to vote on, right? And so there's basically 3 options on what to do going forward, right? So I'm just saying them out loud. We know quickly, we know what they are. So
Should
option.
also be tabled to the full board meeting on Monday.
I recommend we motion to have a committee of the whole continue this discussion, or to have it be discussed at Monday's meeting, but not opine.
So.
What's the motion?
You might want to, if there's, a committee of the whole hasn't been empowered yet.
Yeah, no.
Or to
that-
suggest there
that
be a
should be
committee.
done on Monday when everybody can be there to make a decision, that we can't make a decision for the people who are not here.
No, but with.
We could do a recommendation.
Making a motion that get proposed.
He is, he's gonna,
Yeah,
he's
that's what
already
I'm
said
saying.
that, that's
Yeah,
gonna be
that's-
the. what's
Yeah, that's the
gonna
motion.
happen.
Yes, that's the motion. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So the motion that I'm proposing is that I am empowered to ask for committee of the whole meeting at our general board meeting.
Second.
Or to follow up on this.
To follow up on this, yes. So,
Favor.
okay, great. So all those in favor? Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions?
Now you can make your motion.
Any no?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
One member's in the restroom.
Oh, we had a board member.
It was over.
I would like to say, ladies and gentlemen,
I sent him home, but I want to thank
I wanna-
CB14 staff.
I want to thank our chairperson and Sean for such a difficult program, and they did it beautifully.
And Greg.
The other folks here.
Thank you. I will. I appreciate that. Thank you. No, enough. I appreciate the feedback.
Thank you for
I don't remember. I was talking about it, but mention, sorry.
Yeah, first time I sat down, it was 3 hours and it was exhausting.
I know that
I haven't
people
got
watch
food.
TV for the parking.
Yeah.
and I
And then we started again. Once
I'm trying to make it so like,
zoning. is on.
I know that like.
Oh, you do, you guys do.
They don't have.
That I don't like. But the other thing that I don't-
Things like maybe permanent parking permits.
it also might say 35 minutes on foot.
Like should make it that they're.
Oh, yeah.
Like I'm not, I think I agree with you that it's a problem if people drive for a long time. I just wanted to. So I'm not good at zoning. People are, if buildings are developing, they're not doing them for free, right?
Yes, meaning they were processed.
And they're still able to come. Like no one's like, I mean,
Everywhere, so.
yeah, I was never one develop a building and then develop parking and go in, right? Like, oh, it's paid.
Of course, they're gonna.
And that's basically.
Brian, section of.
Yeah.
Open building.
Yeah.
Whatever we have this idea that, we live in this city where, we got some city by many more. We're gonna deal with the climate or-
No, no, no.
I know.
I'm sorry.
But I'm right here. Right, so when you bring a building into a neighborhood, five, six department, or enough, then the people that have into the neighborhood have now have to fight with the residents who are already fighting for.
I guess, yeah.
You know,
So that only adds to.
We also have lots of statistics.
Hey, how are you?
I think that my observation has been that.
Look, we have statistics. We know. No, that's not true. We know what the statistics are. But anyway, aside from that, let me just point out to you,
Good to see you.
we're all volunteers.
All right.
The idea that getting people together more often because it's a controversial issue is a good idea, never works. People don't show up. People don't